proposing this year to do more of that sort of work. We recently did get a confirmation from that contractor. They will hold their prices from last year. So we're going to be aggressive on doing that kind of two-pronged approach going forward. Terry, I did want to get clarification. I know we did two sides of Ashcraft from Connecticut up. And so was it the extension of that work continuing on toward Jefferson? Was that what you were alluding to in your summary?
Yes, you guys did a fantastic job from Connecticut to Ledyard Street. And I know that needed to be done, but it needs to be done from Ledyard to at least Jefferson Avenue. There's no sidewalk at all.
Okay. All right.
And it also doesn't go from Jefferson up to Coleman.
Pardon me, folks. So I'd be happy to let this dialogue continue. But just a reminder to Terry and Director Sear, because of the audio recording nature, if before you speak, just to say that this is first name. But yeah, go ahead, Director Sear.
Sure. No, I will do that. Yes. Okay. This is Director Sear. Yes, we will look into continuing. As far as Morton Street, again, it's Director Sear, 17 Morton. Is that different than the section that we did install along the west side of Morton? I'm not familiar by the number. If we might have just addressed that because we did. Yeah,
there's a new. We did. If I can interrupt with the chairman's permission, 17 is on the side where we just put the new sidewalk from Thames Street to Plant Street.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. It's Director Sear. Yes, we did address, and that section is complete. As I go through your list again, it's Director Sear. We have it, and if you did notify me before, I'm sorry, it slipped my mind. I have no problem looking into that crosswalk on Montauk Avenue. When I got this summary, we did look into that, and we would be proposing an appropriate crosswalk, working with the other crosswalks we have on the side streets to Montauk, and figure out something that would make the most sense, and can, as far as providing safety and also being the most effective crossing there. 156 William Street, again, it's Director Sear. That's a clash, if you will, between the condition of the sidewalk and the tree, and also we have an active community group, New London Trees, which has taken a strong interest in becoming involved and notified and kind of discussing whenever we remove any city trees, particularly ones in key areas. We did have our tree warden go out and look at that tree, and the tree is in healthy shape. That doesn't mean that it doesn't warrant removal for safety, but that particular area we've looked at, that particular tree, and it's a balancing act. And I appreciate the issues with the safety. We'll definitely address that. Again, it's Director Sear still. Lincoln Avenue, it is on our list. We are going to complete that this season. Like I said, the gas work is all done. We will be addressing Thames Street. And then as far as the other areas that have been added on to that request, Upper Glenwood and Lower Boulevard, we do try to concentrate on areas that get a lot of use and connect important areas for pedestrian access. I'm not saying either of these areas don't have use like that. I do understand on Upper Glenwood there are some drainage issues, and we do not have curbing along there, and that contributes to, again, some erosion and problems there. First, it's coming to my attention, the same thing on Lower Boulevard. Lower Boulevard looks like a nice connector for people walking through the neighborhood or maybe cutting through to the beach from Montauk, et cetera. And we will definitely look at that and try to make a judgment in terms of what we're trying to do now, rather than just do both sides of the street every time we do sidewalks, we're trying to extend the value of the funds that we have to apply to sidewalks. And in some cases, it does work for the entire neighborhood if we only address one side. And perhaps that's something we can look at on Lower Boulevard and get some sort of connectivity through there. That's kind of an overview. I'm open to more questions, comments, etc. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Sear. This is Chairman Burke. Since we only have 12 minutes remaining or so, I'd like to go move to our first round of questions, starting with President Pro Tem Nartanes. Any questions or comments at this time?
Thank you, Chair Burke. I do not have additional questions at this time.
All right, this is Chairman Burke. Thank you very much. Councilor John Sadi, any questions or comments at this time?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion the City Council receive for the record the recommendations of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee for sidewalk/road improvement in the city. This is Councilor John Sadi making that motion. And that we forward those recommendations to the City Council.
All right, this is Chairman Burke. Thank you. Councilor Sadi, a motion has been made to receive these for the record. Is there a second?
This is President Pro Tem Nartanes. I'll second that. Just to clarify, this is to be received for the record to council, correct?
This is Chairman Burke. Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Before we call for a vote on this, I would like to add a friendly amendment. As Terry Horton pointed out earlier, they did have an additional request come in through the weekend. So I would add an amendment to add onto the list for Public Works to take a look at ways for Michael Road and Clark Lane to provide better access for folks walking along the Waterford border there. So I would offer that as a friendly amendment as an addition if either committee member is willing to second.
This is President Pro Tem Nartanes. I'll second that amendment.
All right, so the amendment has been seconded. I will take a vote on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, the amendment carries. And now we will vote on the motion as amended to receive this for the record in the Public Works Committee, which will then later be received for the record.
Chairperson Burke.
Yes, Councilor Sadi, go ahead.
This is Councilor Sadi. I believe President Pro Tem Nartanes had suggested before we call the motion that we allow people an opportunity to talk.
Of course, yeah, that sounds good. So we have the motion as amended on the floor now. Being conscious of time, we do have about 10 minutes left in this committee meeting. So at this point, I will open it up to other city councilors for any questions or comments. If any other councilors? I see that we have been joined by President Dominguez here as well. President Dominguez, Councilors Booker Jr., Councilor Dice, anyone have any questions or comments at this time?
Yeah, Councilor Burke, this is President Dominguez. I don't have any questions at this time or comments. Thank you.
This is Councilor Burke. Thank you very much, President Dominguez. I will take one time for a question. So Brian, if you, Director Sear, I'm very happy to hear that we are, I believe it's Langton is the additional contractor that we brought on last year for the on-call sidewalk work. Very happy to hear that they are willing to offer us the same rates. If you could maybe just speak a little bit about, a year later, how that program went for us this year, some of the successes. Is there anything that we can do better next year in terms of making the best use of that?
Yes, like I said before, yeah, it's Director Brian Sear, Public Works Director. Yes, there were 31 locations we addressed. We were kind of new to this, but the process worked very well. In some cases, it would be city councilors that would contact us, knowing that now we could address smaller areas that had needs. There were some requests from the public. It was a very loose process. We just tried to accommodate the needs as they came in. Everybody made their comments. We were able to address them. It worked out very successfully. Going forward, I would just pass the word on to the councilors, et cetera, that we now have this as a capability. And even if it's a small area that needs to be addressed, we now have the tools to do that. And just keep that in mind. Like I say, it was a loose process. It was very simple. We discussed the needs. We'd go out and we'd do it. Thankfully, we got a contractor that really knew what they were doing. We've never had any complaints about the work they did. And they were very flexible. If we needed a driveway apron done, they did it. If we needed a handicap apron put in, they could do it. They would do short areas of sidewalks. And it all worked out wonderfully. And hopefully in the coming year, it'll work out as smoothly as it did last year. Thank you.
This is Chairman Burke. Thank you very much, Director Sear. With a few minutes remaining then, Terry Hortman, Chair of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Is there anything else that you would like to comment or question on the record before we move to accept these recommendations?
So this is Terry Horton from Pedestrian Advisory. I would just like to thank everybody that is coming together and working so well to do this. The sidewalks, I know we're all, close with money and time, but they are coming out so great. And I hear a lot of nice comments as well as the complaints, but it is actually coming out so good. And I'm just glad that everybody can work together. So thank you.
Wonderful. This is Chairman Berg. Thank you very much, Terry. And I will echo your praise both to Director Sear, the entire Public Works Department, as well as both of our contractors that we now have on board, increasing our pedestrian accessibility in the city. And now, just as I see some other people have joined the meeting, just to give a quick summary for those who might not have known, in addition to when we repave whole streets of sidewalks, we now have additional contractor in the city that is able to do smaller one-off jobs when there's problems areas, maybe in certain neighborhoods, or folks have a certain issue with, again, the driveway cutout or something like that. So just to be in touch, if you have a neighbor, if you know something like that could be addressed yourself, don't be a stranger, get in touch. As Director Sear mentioned, we were able to help out 31 of these jobs last year, and I'm looking forward to another successful year of that. So with that, is there any last committee member or city councilor that would like to ask a question or comment at this time? Hearing none, I will go ahead and take a vote of the committee members on receiving this list as amended to be received for the record in the Public Works Committee and forward to the City Council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion carries. This report as amended will be forwarded to the City Council to be received for the record.
This is President Pro Tem Hurtado. I'll make a motion at this time to adjourn.
Second by Council Sadi.
This is Chairman Burke. Motion to adjourn has been made by President Pro Tem Hurtado, seconded by Councilor Sadi. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of adjourn the Public Works Committee signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, the Public Works Committee meeting has been adjourned at 5:55. 6 p.m. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Good evening. Buenas tardes. Welcome to tonight's public safety meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order. Today is Monday, March 1st, 2021, and the time is 6:00 p.m. The committee members are President Efrain Dominguez and Councilor Riona Dice. Thank you to the other city councilors who are present tonight. We have Councilor Burke, who is in attendance, Councilor Goodwin, who is in attendance, and President Pro Temp Natartes, and also Councilor Sadi. Due to the ongoing national and state public health emergency caused by the global coronavirus pandemic, the City of New London public meetings will be held virtually. Meeting agendas can be found at www.newlondonct.org. An audio recording of this meeting will be posted on the city website within 7 days of the meeting. Public comment may be submitted in writing to jstarts@newlondonct.org. If you prefer, you may sign up to speak at the following link on the City of New London website, newlondonct.org live stream. This link will bring you to a fillable form where you may submit your name and you will be added to the public comment list and called on via Zoom during the public comment portion of the meeting. Public comment must be submitted in writing or your name submitted on the fillable sign-up form of the city website at least 15 minutes prior to the scheduled start time of the meeting. Please include your address and your written public comment submission. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to discuss the staffing levels in the London Police Department. And also tonight for Women's History, I would like to recognize Lola Baldwin as the first female police officer in the United States sworn in by the City of Portland in 1908. And thank you so much for joining us during this committee meeting tonight. I will now open the floor for public comment. First, I would like to start off with Chris Raitt. Then we will go to Chloe Murphy, Habiba, and then Officer Socio. And then President Dominguez will read a letter by one of our residents as well. And then I will read one of the letters, and then we will go to our secretary, Ms. Jenny Starts. So starting off with public comment, Mrs. Chris Raitt.
Yes, good evening all. I am Chris Raitt, 137 Ocean Avenue, New London, Connecticut. I am really appreciative to this committee and your leadership, Councilor Booker, and President Dominguez's leadership to really make the time to have this important conversation tonight. I just think it's incredibly important. This is a moment where we can actually stop and sort of ask ourselves, what are our policing needs in New London? And so as I was thinking about that before this evening's meeting, I was thinking about what do we know? Like, what's the information we know? And so here's a list of some of the things I came up with that I think can help us in deciding whether or not 80 is too many for the city. So we know the towns across Connecticut that are a similar population size to New London have dramatically smaller police departments than New London's. We also know that 40% of 911 calls are actually a request for mental health services and supports. We know that the current Human Services Department in New London would be the logical department to respond to those mental health calls, but unfortunately they only have 1.5 people for staff. We also know that in July, the New London City Council unanimously and bravely and boldly declared racism a public health crisis. And we also know that New London Police Department has documented cases of harms against Black people. We know that 3,000 Black, Indigenous, Latinx, people of color, youth-led marched this summer to ask that we do something differently because they don't feel protected or served by the New London Police Department. And we know that, in fact, Black people have been calling for an end to police brutality in massive uprisings, thank you, across the country for decades. So this is really an exciting evening tonight that it's an exciting opportunity for such an amazing, and progressive city council to take yet another step in the direction towards justice. And that's, to repeal this ordinance so that we can begin to have really robust conversations about what public safety looks like in the city. Thank you so much. And I really look forward to the evening.
Thank you, Chris Ray. Just as another reminder, you have 3 minutes. And Mrs. Jenny Starks, she will let you know when you have at least 1 more minute left. You have a minute left. Next, we have Ms. Chloe Murphy. Okay, we'll come back to Ms. Chloe Murphy. Next, we have Habiba.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Habiba Abdul Hakim, 14 Home Street, New London, Connecticut. It is both an honor and privilege to collaborate with People's Budget New London in an effort to speak before the mayor, our most historically progressive city council to date, and the 40 esteemed guests of honor, AKA the citizen participants who counted it not robbery to be present at this appointed time, to discuss the ordinance entitled Size of Police Force. It reads simply as such: it shall be the policy of the City of New London to employ a police force comprised of a minimum of 80 full-time patrolmen and officers, excluding chief and deputy chief. It's a 32-word liner with no direction other than the count of the police department. And yet it causes so much discomfort for our community. And I'll tell you why. The community is as progressive as the city council it voted in. It has baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, zennials, Generation Z, and Generation Alpha. And we all know on some level and form how to look up information and data and how to check the media and even the fact checkers designated to us by social media platforms that notoriously jail us for posting truths that go against the status quo. We are undoubtedly holding politicians to their campaign promises and municipalities to their ethics and procedures. Police budget is comprised of all of those generations, save Generation Alpha, and we have painstakingly comprised evidence and data showing you that our police department is overstaffed. Our police department does not really represent the community in that 80% of our department are non-residents. They don't have an intimate relationship with our children. They don't know our history. They don't have a stake in New London. I personally have a habit of looking in a police car when it passes by to see, do I recognize this police face, this officer? And 9 times out of 10, I do not. And that's because there are way too many of them. And this is not an indictment against the police. My grandfather and my aunt were both police officers in Brooklyn, New York. I have a rapport with several officers, both currently on the force as well as retirees. And I am on the PCRC serving a second term, trying to maintain and build the bridges between the community and our police. Freeing up funds to provide for the needs and desires of our community is, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, something that we can do. Chris already talked about the 40% of calls that are related to mental health and human services. Downsizing the force could relinquish funding to provide comprehensive CIT training for the current police force that we have, or well, downsized to a smaller force. They can have comprehensive training that would allow them to be more proficient on those type of calls when they go there. It's only fair to those citizens with those issues, and it's only fair to the police department when they get there. Prevention is better than the cure. It is better than the cure. And it goes hand in hand with that declaration from July about the racism being a public health issue within New London.
Time.
Please. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Habiba Abdul Hakim. Next, we will have Officer Ryan Social. Officer Socio?
Is it working now?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Council. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. My name is Ryan Socio. For those who don't know, I've been a police officer for 10 years now. I've been a New London police officer for going on 6. For the past 3 years, I was a crime prevention officer for the department. But due to our understaffed nature, that's not all I did. I also had to take on the duties of the traffic officer, the community affairs officer, the fleet manager, the grants manager, the special projects officer. And as the old adage goes, jack of all trades, master of none. I did my best to keep all the balls in the air. And, but unfortunately, some things fell through the cracks and I just got burnt out. A lot of the officers here are burnt out because a lot of people don't understand the volume of calls that we go to. And it's actually quite puzzling, the idea of reducing staffing levels, and defunding is still even on the table. If you want a case study against defunding, you don't have to look any further than Minneapolis, okay? And here is a case study for police staffing levels in 4 news headlines that I provided for you, okay? This one, NPR, Minneapolis Council moves to defund police. That's in June. Washington Post, Minneapolis violence surges as police officers leave department in droves. In February of this year, Minneapolis to spend $6.4 million to recruit more police officers due to the surging violence. If funding didn't work in Minneapolis, and it won't work in New London. We all remember mid-2020 when the Trump administration sought to cut some funding from the Postal Service. We watched everybody lose their minds and protest over these cuts. Many people said that cuts to the Postal Service will mean longer delivery times, greater inefficiency, poor service. But if cuts to the post office mean poor service and less efficiency, why do we believe that cuts to the police department will bring the opposite effect?
1 minute.
Doesn't make any sense. Now is the time we have to have more conversation, more positive interactions with the public, and more partnerships. We do need better technology to help us do our jobs more effectively, to reduce burnout, to reduce officer fatigue. We need a designated community relations unit to build those relationships and organize the community meetings and attend those neighborhood functions and develop those partnerships that help us do our jobs and help us gain our legitimacy. We need officers in the schools telling the students that we are here to help too. We're not just here to arrest people. Right now, NLPD is treading water, and any cuts would just put us under. And lastly, you cannot sit on the Public Safety Committee. You cannot say that you're in favor of public safety while simultaneously demoralizing the people that do the work every day.
Time.
Thank you, Officer Ryan Socio. Next, we will have President Dominguez read a comment from one of our residents.
Thank you. This says, thank you for your patience and time. My name is Denise Boyd. I live at 73 Connecticut Avenue. I am giving testimony today as a citizen of our great city, New London. I have concerns that we are hiring too many police officers. I respect and support the work and role police officers provide to our city's public safety. However, we are spending too much of our city's finances on policing while neglecting community youth services, underfunding New London public schools, and not maintaining old city buildings and property, just to name a few things. It is also heartbreaking to see money get misused, like having criminally trained police officers in schools instead of trained mental and behavioral health professionals who work with the youth in our schools. I also have noticed when my neighbors call 911 because they're sick, police, ambulance, and fire department shows up. It brings a feeling of danger and a threat to our community safety when it's not. Along with a bright light show of the windows in my house. I also seen 4 more police cars show up for a routine traffic stop. It always makes me think, wow, they must not have nothing better to do at this time. And that's good news because it means crime is down in our city. That's one of the reasons why I love New London. It's not as bad as some of the other cities I visited. It's also no better time than right now to redo and rethink how we are managing our city funds. I believe we need to all come together and change the way we plan to spend our city's money. For starters, we don't need 80 police officers, nor do we need to hire more to replace retiring officers. We also don't need them in our schools. We can talk about other options for our schools. supporting community policing, and undoing systemic racism in our police practices another time. Tonight, I want to express to all of you to repeal City Ordinance Section 15-62 in regards to the size of the police. At the City Council meeting tonight, I believe we have an awesome team of city elected leaders and a team of community organizers, and under leadership of our city's youth, we can show the youth how to create a greater New London for future generations to come. We all love New London and want to make our city better. Let's start tonight with one simple step. Vote to repeal the city ordinance of hiring 80 police officers. Let us all plan to take the next steps together in creating a greater city for all our residents, its citizens in all neighborhoods in New London. Thank you again. Respectfully yours, Denise Boyd.
Thank you very much, President Dominguez, for reading the public comment by Denise Boyd. Now we will have Mrs. Jenny Starks, who will read public comments from Ranjit Matthews and also Chloe Murphy. Miss Chloe Murphy.
Okay, my name is Ranjit Matthews, 119 Huntington Street. I rise to speak as a private citizen of New London. I humbly ask that the City Council repeal the ordinance mandating a minimum number of 80 police officers for the city. We are at a critical moment in our nation's history, and this budget for the city provides an opportunity to incorporate the powerful reckoning that many Americans heard in 2020. For so many of us, our eyes and ears were opened to the realities of police violence in our country. While I deeply appreciate the women and men who serve in our police force and the sacrifice they make, research shows us that municipal and city dollars can have a more direct impact on the well-being of our communities when we channel our taxes into direct services like education, recreation, etc. Instead of moving reactively, these services address our city's need directly and preventatively. Moreover, as citizens of our city, what will we have learned from the reckoning in 2020 if we continue to recreate the same budgets as before? The opportunity to change and be more in tune with the needs of our people is before the City Council. Repealing this ordinance is a step in the right direction. And this is Chloe Murphy. To the Public Safety Committee of New London, Connecticut, I am writing to urge you to support the repeal of our city ordinance mandating that New London employ a minimum of 80 police officers. Residents have gathered and presented research contrasting the size of our city and officer employment with that of other cities in Connecticut of comparable size. They have consistently found that New London employs a disproportionate number of officers given the size of our city. Despite our over-policed municipality, still the city has struggled to meet the stipulation. That is, the city has failed to employ 80 officers, at least as of 2016, 2 years after the initial adoption of this ordinance. Councilors have stated that New London is unique among small Connecticut towns such as East Haven and Branford, given the social services we provide, services which are more essential to our underfunded community than they would be to comparably sized towns like East Haven and Branford. I would think that this would be grounds to provide more financial support to our necessary social services rather than concern for an officer employment ordinance which the city struggles to fulfill. It is also worth noting that many of our social services are provided through nonprofits which do not receive municipal funds. Without these nonprofits, many of the needs of New London community members would not be met, given that the city is ill prepared to meet them due to underfunded social service departments. The correlation between expansive social services and the greater need for policing is also unclear. I understand the city is under pressure from both citizens and the police union, who are apparently at odds with one another about the future of policing and police budgeting in our city. Citizens support a reduction of policing, with funds from the engorged police budget being redirected towards social services. While it is the duty of the New London police officers to protect and serve, residents have clearly articulated that they are best served through the city's financial support of social welfare programs, that their well-being is best protected through the city's commitment to these programs. After all, it is community care, the fulfillment of basic needs, and strong social relationships which keep our communities safe. There is much work to be done, particularly via a just reallocation of funds in this budget season, but a sound enough start is repealing the ordinance which mandates 80 officers. Chloe Murphy.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Jenny Starks. Now I will read a public comment from Mr. C.J. Parker. Words matter. Words matter so much that the following sentence impacts the lives of at least 26,858 people. It shall be the policy of the City of New London to employ a police force comprised of a minimum of 80 full-time patrolmen and officers, excluding a chief and deputy. While councilors have stated the passing of this 80 officer mandate in our 5.62 square miles was ceremonial, These 31 words are much more than just letters on a piece of paper. This ceremonial declaration indicates policymakers' priorities. These words display how citizens of New London are viewed. The criminalization of our residents has gone on for long enough. When asked about the 80 officer mandate, counselors have said this number of officers is absolutely too high and even silly. Counselors and constituents alike recognize this mandate lacked research and data to inform it. It's merely an arbitrary number. Meanwhile, it affects everyday life for the people of our city. Without sufficient funding and recreation, human services, and many other aspects of the budget, people cannot access the services they need and deserve. The people in New London deserve better. The people deserve a budget representatives of their wants and needs. The people deserve education, community events, and mental health support. As city councilors are well aware, 40% of calls to the police are for mental health needs. City councilors are also aware that crime rates have been dropping, while the mayor claimed this drop in crime was a result of an increased police budget. He neglected to acknowledge several other factors, such as an increase in students going to college. Studies show younger people are more likely to commit crime, and most people will age out of criminal activity. With an increase in students attending college, there are less people of this demographic residing in this city. This is not due to inherent criminality. It has to do with psychology and neuroscience. As the brain develops, people are able to make more thought out of decision. Certain things negatively impact this development, one of them being trauma. Being arrested for youthful activities can be traumatizing. Being incarcerated is certainly traumatizing. Growing up with a lack of resources, recreational activities, job opportunities, mental health support, and a subpar education contributes to creating an environment where trauma is likely to be more common. This is our current reality. People are being criminalized and policed for the failures of the city. This 80 officer mandate will ensure negative cycles continue. Through repealing this ordinance, the city council will be able to create the positive change you have spoken about. It is clear there is a need for increased mental health support. The data shows this. Data also shows education and recreation improves life outcomes. CJ Parker. So now I would like to open it up to some of our committee members, if you'd like to respond to the public comment. Starting off with Councilor Dice.
This is Councilor Dice. First of all, I appreciate how each of the people who gave testimony or they researched, and I was very impressed with that. And also the fact that you can hear in their words, whether it was written or if they gave it themselves, that their conviction, the things that they stand on and what they believe in. And I just like to say thank you, first of all, for coming forth and sharing what you have researched and what you discover and how you feel what should happen in our city. That's the main thing. And Officer Socio, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly, as you share about wearing many hats as you go out and do public service, as you go out to support the community. I appreciate your testimony and where you stand at. And what I really thought was very supportive is for the ones who share about what the real issue is and what we're looking at today. Have we met minimum of 80 officers? And that's what we're looking at today. So I like being on task and straightforward about what we're dealing with right now at this moment. And again, I just like to say thank you. And I keep looking down at my notes because there was a lot of things that was shared, and I appreciate people sharing it. But one of our reality, some things are not fully disclose. And hopefully as we go through, we will look at the larger picture. This is Councilor Dyson. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you very much, Councilor Dice. President Dominguez?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening to everyone. I just want to thank everyone for coming out, for sharing their point of view, the research that they have done, and just for being part of this discussion. But I'm looking really forward to hearing from the Chief and from Captain Wright eventually. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we'll save that discussion for the City Council agenda. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Any other councilors have any comments? Councilor Burke?
This is Councilor Burke. No comments at this time. I'll reserve time for the later council meeting. Thank you, Chairman.
Absolutely. President Pro Tem Natartes?
No additional questions at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Absolutely. Councilor Goodwin?
No additional questions at this time. Thank you to everyone that spoke up today. Really appreciate it.
And Councilor Sadi?
Likewise, I will reserve my right to comment until we discuss at the council level.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilor Sadi, as well. And I just want to thank you all for joining this committee meeting this evening. I look forward to further having this discussion further on in the City Council meeting. The only item on this agenda this evening was to discuss the staffing levels in the New London Police Department. So thank you all for the discussion during our committee meeting. This matter is already on the City Council agenda for this evening. We will discuss it further at that time. I would like to thank my committee members and everyone who is in attendance in the public safety meeting today. So do I have a motion to adjourn the public safety committee meeting?
This Councilor Dice, point of order. I thought we need to move this to council agenda.
It's already on the, no, it's not. It's already on the agenda.
Thank you.
But thank you very much.
Councilor Dice speaking. Thank you so much for clarifying that.
Absolutely.
Councilor Dice, I make a motion to adjourn.
Awesome.
Yep, I will. This is President Dominguez. I will second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome. The meeting is adjourned.
Good evening, and I want to welcome everybody to tonight's administrative committee meeting. Today is March 1st, 2021. This meeting is going to be called to order at 6:30 p.m. The administration committee members are Councillor Dice and Councillor Booker, who are on the call, as well as it looks like the entire council is actually joining the administration call as well. We have several things on the agenda tonight. They are reappointments. So at this time, call to order. Let's go ahead and go straight to public comment. I think we had one person. Jenny, do you want to go ahead and look at that list?
Yep, Kat Goulart.
Okay, Ms. Goulart, you have 3 minutes and you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, Kat Goulart, 54 Dow Street. All right, so for those who don't know, I am the current chair of the Police Community Relations Committee. And for those who recall, many months ago, I believe it was actually September of 2020, the admin committee announced that it would no longer be filling vacancies to the PCRC until it received the recommendation or the report from the Public Safety Policy Oversight Committee or board. I know that I'm getting the name wrong, but I think we all know what I'm referring to. You have since received their report and their advisement, and I know that they have recommended some changes to the PCRC as well as some additional committees. However, nothing's changed for the PCRC as it is. We are still functioning in our full capacity. We do still have a vacancy and another vacancy upcoming. And so the PCRC submitted to the council or to this committee, and it was accepted by the council for the record on January 19th, a request by PCRC for the admin committee to please fill the vacancies on the PCRC. As it stands right now, we have the education community unrepresented, and we will soon have the NAACP position unrepresented. I think those are two important positions to have represented on the PCRC. And as we are still conducting business, we're still hearing civilian complaint investigations. The members of the PCRC think that, we should have those positions filled. So, I'm here to ask you tonight to please consider filling those positions. As it is right now, we do only have the education vacancy, and I think that there's at least one person who's applied for that. So
1 minute.
Thank you, Jenny. So I would ask that you please consider filling those vacancies now and moving forward on the PCRC. Additionally, my tenure is expired on PCRC. I did submit, as soon as it expired, an application for renewal. I spoke with Law Director Londrigan. He said I'm fine to serve, that our business is legal moving forward, and that it's fine, but I would ask you to consider processing the renewal application on there. This, as long as I qualify. I heard your words loud and clear last time. Just because someone applies doesn't mean that they qualify. I did submit an email on the matter, but I'm going into my second term. I was unanimously elected chair by my peers. I would hope that that would qualify me for it. So I'd ask you to consider processing that renewal as well. And that's all I have that's all I have for you this evening. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Goulart. And do we have anybody else that signed up for this meeting? Jenny?
No, that's it.
So I'll go ahead and respond to Ms. Goulart's comments, and then I'll open it up to Councilors Dice and Councilor Booker. So the law director is correct, Ms. Goulart. You can continue. Anybody can continue to serve on any committee unless the chair replaces that position. So your position, your status as chair is still very much there. And we did get the report back, and we are still in meetings deciding what route we're going to go. So that's as chair of the administrative committee. We're gonna make sure that we're looking at everything closely before we start appointing people or reappointing people to any of these committees. So more to come on that later. I'll open it up to Councilor Dice or Councilor Booker if you want to respond. If not, we've got quite a few things on the CAM that we'll be reviewing tonight.
Councilor Dice, I have no questions at this time or no response.
Thank you, Councilor Dice.
Councilor Booker, I have no comments or no questions at this moment either.
Thank you, Councilor Booker. So let's go ahead and go to appointments on boards and committees and procedures. We do have, like I said, a couple here. Let's look at the first CAM. These are members of the beautification committee. This is a 2-year term. I'm going to go ahead and call out the names of these individuals on this committee. For reappointments, there is Bethany Angel, Mark McConnell, Mary Beth Baker, Janine Roth, Deidre Kavanaugh, Diane Smith, Sue Davis, Kevin Stevensons, Carolyn Driscoll, Donna Vendetto, Kay Frank, Martha Tita Williams, Blythe Henry, Michael Wright, and Mary Jo Logan. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to go ahead and read all of the CAMs. Actually, I take that back. I'm going to do one at a time. So let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and what I'd like to do is move this CAM to council. So can I get a motion to move?
Councilor Dice, I motion to move this CAM to council.
Councilor Booker, I second it.
Okay, before we vote, any comments on what I just read out from either one of the committee members? Okay, let's go ahead. All those in favor, if I can see your hands, aye.
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 And opposed. All right. Let's go to the next CAM. This is a city council appoints Dr. Maria Pontes Vieira as a regular member of the beautification committee for a 2-year term. Once again, any discussion by either committee members? Okay, I don't see any hands. So can I get a motion to push to council?
Councilor Dice, I would like to submit this to council.
Councilor Booker, I second it.
Now let's go ahead and vote on that. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed, it's 2-1. And the city council appoints Victoria Hunter as a regular member of the beautification committee for a 2-year term. Once again.
Councilor Dice, so move. Move CAM.
Second it.
Yeah, and all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, 0. All right, let's go ahead and move to the next one. City council appoints Keith Dagenaires as a regular member of the beautification committee for a 2-year term.
Councilor Dice, I'd like to move this to council. Make a motion.
Councilor Booker, I second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. And the last CAM, the city council moves Frederica Plummer from an alternate member of a regular member of the Citizens Advisory Committee, the CAC, for a 3-year term.
This Councilor Dice, I'd like to move this to council.
And Councilor Booker, I will second it.
Okay, if there's no discussion, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Opposed, none. Okay, that is all of the appointments for tonight's administrative committee. We do have one last CAM. The CAM is the city council approves the appointments to boards and committees document as recommended by the administrative committee. Both of you would have included the red line version in your packets. These are changes to the document that we have been discussing probably for the last 6 months. So at this time, let's go ahead and make the motion to move, and then I'll open it up for discussion.
This Councilor Dice, I make a motion to move this to.
Councilor Booker, I second it.
Thank you, and we'll stop right there. And if either one of you have any comments, discussion around the changes in the document labeled appointments to boards and committees.
This is Councilor Booker. I have no comments or questions in regards to the changes.
Councilor Dice, no questions.
Let's go ahead and vote on this. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. All right, the last thing that we have is one last motion.
This Councilor Dice, I motion to adjourn.
This is Council Booker, and I second it.
This administrative committee is adjourned at 6:40 p.m. Regular city council meeting will start in 20 minutes at 7 p.m. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to New London City Council meeting this evening, March 1st, 2021, 7 p.m. City Clerk Ayala, roll call vote, please.
President Dominguez,
Present.
President Pro Temp Natartes,
Present.
Councilor Dice,
Present.
Councilor Goodwin,
Present.
Councilor Burke,
Present.
Councilor Sadai,
Here.
Councilor Booker Jr.,
Present.
all present.
All right, this is President Dominguez. Thank you, City Clerk Ayala. At this time, I just want to welcome everyone again to our City Council meeting this evening at 7 p.m. I want to welcome the mayor, all department heads that are present, and especially our audience this evening. Due to the ongoing national and state public health emergency caused by the global coronavirus pandemic, City of New London public meetings will be held virtually. Meetings agenda can be found at www.newlondonct.org. An audio recording of this meeting will be posted on the city website within 7 days of the meeting. Public comment may be submitted in writing to jstarts@newlondonct.org. If you prefer, you may sign up to speak at the following link on the City of New London website, newlondonct.org/life-stream. This link will bring you to a fillable form where you may submit your name and you will be added to the public comment list and called on via Zoom during the public comment portion of the meeting. Public comment must be submitted in writing or your name submitted on the fillable sign-up form on the city website at least 15 minutes prior to scheduled start time of the meeting. Please include your address in your written public comment submission. Okay. At this time, I want to call on Councilor Dice, who's going to be doing the prayer and pledge of allegiance this evening.
This is Councilor Dice. I ask that all that can hear my voice would take a moment of silence. God, I thank you for gathering us here today. I pray that you be with each one of the counselors, directors, and our citizens that's here in this meeting, that as we go forth, that you would guide us into do what is best for the residents here in the City of New London. I ask that everyone that will speak with respect and reverence to you, God, that they will express what the needs are, but also they would do that with the respect of each other, knowing that each one that's here right now in this present is here because they care about their community. I ask these things in your name, in Jesus' name, amen. I ask everyone as they can stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance, and if we can have the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I ask our president if he can recite the pledge in Spanish for us. And thank you.
I can't, Councilor Dice. Thank you. Prometo lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América, a la república que representa una nación ante Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. Right, this is President Dominguez. President Dominguez, thank you, Councilor Dice. At this time, there is no public hearings. Also, just want to remind everyone when we start, whether you're going to be commenting or speaking, make sure that you state your name. And even if you're responding when we start, councilors later on, make sure that you always state your name repeatedly. This is our regulations, right? Because we are still through Zoom having our meetings and this is being recorded, all right? There is no public hearings, 4.0 meetings of previous meetings. I need a motion for that regular meeting of February 16, 2021.
This is Councilor Sadie. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of February 16, 2021 as submitted.
This is Councilor Dice. I'd like to second that motion.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez. Any further discussion on this? All right, seeing none, let's vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Okay, the motion carries. All right, now we move into now public comment. Again, you will have 3 minutes allotted to you. And again, remember please to state your name and the address, and you may begin. All right, our first speaker this evening. Let me get there. Okay. Is Kat Goulart.
Good evening, Kat Goulart, 54 Dow Street. I don't have the agenda pulled up on my laptop in front of me, but I am here tonight to speak on the police staffing ordinance agenda item. I would urge you very strongly to disregard the research presented to you this evening by the folks who are asking you to repeal that ordinance. I hope that you all have had time since the last time this came up to look at the 2007 OSS report regarding staffing and some other issues at the police department. I mean, actually looked at it, read it through completely and really absorbed the information. That's research, not stuff we pull up on the internet, not looking at cities of a comparable size. Cities of a comparable size is not looking at crime stats in different cities. 2 cities with same population is not cities with similar issues. You know, we heard the number 40% thrown around a lot, that 40% of police calls have a mental health component, and that may well be true. But were you aware that 70% of fire calls are for medical calls? 70%. Now, I'm not here to advocate for private duty ambulance, which we know is probably going to be a lot cheaper. But why aren't we talking about that tonight? Because that's not the topic du jour. It's not cool to hate on the fire department, but we're here, you know, it's on trend right now to talk about defunding the police. I don't know what kind of city you think that New London is going to be with a smaller police department, but Officer Socio mentioned what happened in Minneapolis. We can learn a lesson from that. We have closer neighbors than that. Look what happened in New York City when they slashed the transit cop budget. Now all of a sudden there's somebody running around down in the subway with a knife, slashing people, stabbing people. And now they're looking at increasing that budget to get more officers down in the subways. We can learn lessons from that. Increased response times. Those are
1 minute.
Thank you. That are real, that actually happen. I know it's fun to hate on the police now, but you want to know what's not fun? Sitting around for 2 hours when you're in your home and there's an emergency, waiting for the police to come. What happens then when this continues to happen again and again? People leave the city. People with means leave the city. The people who can't leave, the people who don't have means, stay. They stay with an underfunded, undermanned police department, and they get stuck waiting excessive times on emergency calls. And that right there is what hurts Black and brown and poor people. And I urge you to think about that before you make a decision tonight that will cost us lives. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to have Rana Stuller.
Thank you, President Dominguez and City Council. Councilors Rana Stuller, 19 Evergreen Avenue, New London. As I speak about item 7.3, I'm not going to directly address whether or not 80 is the number of police officers our city should employ. To me, that's not the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue is that we're always dealing with changing conditions and needs, and our elected officials need to be able to develop a budget every year that's responsive to our community's current priorities and not bound to arbitrary goals from a time past. Looking at last year's city council agendas, I saw that the March meetings from exactly a year ago were held in person in the senior center. How things change, how they have changed in ways that knock us sideways. When that happens, our needs and priorities shift in ways that render any predetermined assumptions irrelevant. We see the impact of COVID on our community's health and welfare. There's been a decrease nationwide in organized crime, street crime, rapes, and residential burglaries, and an increase in domestic violence, mental health crises, car thefts, homicides, and suicides. The shift suggests, as several speakers at the earlier meeting pointed out, that what we need are more preventive and social services. Our elected officials need to be able to assess the current challenges we face year to year and base funding priorities in response to those needs. It must not be forgotten that budgets are not just about money, they're our best opportunity to turn our values and visions into reality. I asked the City Council tonight to repeal the 80 officer goal so that the New London Police Department is treated equitably with every other city department that does not have minimum goals, and to ensure that our officials will have the flexibility to tailor a budget that addresses any current and future conditions our community might face. A couple responses to things I heard at the earlier meeting regarding school resource officers. Connecticut Voices for Children has called for SROs to be taken out of schools. And I quote, students in schools that employ SROs are more likely to face punishment, expulsion, and arrest than students in schools that do not employ SROs, exacerbating the school to prison pipeline. And regarding one other common police task, traffic stops, the Strong Towns Group, which is not a radical, which is a rather conservative think tank, calls for an end to routine traffic stops because they are, and I quote, dangerous for officers, have little to do with traffic safety, and the pretext is arbitrary, disingenuous, and ripe for all the worst kinds of abuse. Thank you for your time, and I ask you to repeal the minimum.
Okay, this is President Mingus. Thank you. I'm going to give the next three people that are on the list so you'll be ready. All right, the first person is going to be Bailey, then Charmaine, and I'm sorry, Bailey's going to be read by Councilor Sadi. Then we have Charmaine, and then we'll have Jenny, who will be reading for Wayne Bendero Jr. All right, go ahead. Councilor Sadi.
This is Councilor Sadi. I am reading comments of Bailey Howard, 1107 Ocean Avenue, submitted via email. Hello, and thank you for your time. First, I am happy to see some progress with ensuring New London benefits financially from port-related projects. We clearly need all the revenue we can get, so thank you for that fight. Second, I can't help but note that if the teacher union ever posted names and photos of critics on a website, some with the snotty nicknames intended to discredit them, that everyone would be outraged. Teachers listen to parents' sometimes loud and angry concerns about all sorts of issues in and outside of their control every day and collaborate to find solutions without overtime, without naming and shaming, and without labeling people anti-teacher. Sure, you can do it, but if you want a safe community, people need to be able to express concerns without fear they'll be next face posted and mocked. Next, what we have is not working. Our policing is expensive, punitive, and exhausting. Like teachers, police are constantly juggling issues that should not be up to them to resolve. It results in seeing young people and neighbors in the police log rather than involved with programs offered by the community to meet their needs, find their interests, and lift them up. It results in tragic loss of kids we love. With regard to getting rid of the ordinance requiring 80 officers, I've seen some outraged people say we have more crime, so we need more police than comparable sized communities. But a more realistic perspective is we have more residents caught up in criminal justice system, and we need to reduce and prevent that through human-centered service tailored to New London. Be outraged, we don't have a reasonable number of human service staff. We need more mental health services, career coaching, mentoring, mediation, affordable housing, safe places for young people to hang out in their neighborhoods, and other services that either don't exist or aren't abundant and accessible enough. A community with a major population of people who feel like there's no way up and like there's no resource to for them will undoubtedly have more crime. So we can either continue to prioritize funding to react and punish, or we can decide to invest. We can try investing in the creation of engaging supportive pathways to opportunities for all residents in true commitment to the more equitable city. Thanks, Bailey Howard, 1107 Ocean Avenue. This is Councilor Stati.
Hi, Charmaine Gregor, 30 Broad Street, New London. I'm next, right? I can go.
Yes, yes.
All right. So first and foremost, I'd like to say thank you, especially to all the people that work diligently behind the scenes to get some of this work done, where we aren't seeing, again, I'm always talking about that transparency when we meet, and it is not in this public forum, and the work that gets done there. But first and foremost, I'd like to bring attention to item number 8.1, the repeal of section 15.62 on the council's agenda. As most people have talked about, there's a lot that goes into policing, and I think that the work that we're doing is great, but I think that a barrier that's keeping us from doing some of the work is having the restlessness of a few words define how we police our city. And I'm saying it because it's not that the number is more than the value of what it's saying. We need to be able to address the issue at its root cause. And by doing that, it means that we need to talk about this. And if 80 is not the right answer, then what is the right answer? And so by making that action, you're giving us all the opportunity to explore what that means for our city. Secondly, I would like to thank, again, all the people that spoke before. We talked a lot about the different ins and outs and what it means for each of us. I respect very, very much hearing from an officer, because it's not very often that we get an appointed officer on their own behalf to speak. And so Ryan, I thank you for your side of the story, and I appreciate all the work that you do. And I don't want to say that we are defunding you, but we want to refund you in those ways where you do feel like you're picking up the slack. There has to be someone that can assist you in that work. And that's the kind of funding that we want to try to get to you. And that's what the people's budget is about, is you being able to have the outlet to say that I am doing this work and I need these resources. And these resources don't come from within the police station. They come from outside organizations and outside programs.
1 minute.
Be able to bring those kinds of things together. And I think by repealing the ordinance allows all of us to come to the table and talk about what our future looks like here in New London. Thank you.
I have a written comment from Wayne Vendetto Jr. To the New London City Council. In the interest of transparency, public safety, and proper procedure as it appears in the City of New London Code of Ordinances, I request the New London City Council give the statutory 3 readings to CAM item 8.1, the repeal of section 1562. In the interest of public safety, I suggest the council take the prudent route and research the efficacy of such actions in police departments and communities across the country, Portland, Oregon being one. Warmest regards, Wayne Vendetto Jr.
Thank you. This is President Dominguez. At this time, I'm going to call the next 3, Frida, Mia, and Seth.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Frida Berrigan. I live at 246 Connecticut Avenue. And I am addressing item 7.3 on your agenda tonight. Happy to be with all of you counselors, and thank you for all of your work. I wrote down my remarks in the hopes that I would get it in the 3 minutes. Reading Jeannie Milstein's excellent op-ed from a few weeks ago, I was struck by the fact that 40% of our 911 calls are from people who are in mental health crisis. And that figure just kind of brought me up short, right? It means that almost half of those who call for help don't need a crime fighter, don't need a public safety officer. They need a therapist. They need a mental health professional. They need a helping hand. They might even need a friend. Locally, that made me think of the untimely death of Lashano Gilbert in 2014, a promising young man with local ties who found himself in the throes of a mental health crisis on that fateful October day. He was apprehended and subdued and arrested, taken to the hospital. And after being released back into police custody by doctors at L&M, he still was in acute crisis. In lockup, he was pepper sprayed and tased and subdued by police officers and died. And I mentioned this incident in which police officers were cleared of wrongdoing by a state investigation. And I'll mention too, in which the city paid out a substantial but undisclosed figure in a settlement to Lashano Gilbert's family. I mentioned this not to reopen old wounds, right? But to imagine what would have transpired if mental health professionals armed with empathy, with crisis intervention training, and with time had been called to the corner of Broad and Williams
1 minute.
On that fateful day, instead of police officers armed with guns and pepper spray and tasers. Lashano Gilbert, then in medical school, would be a doctor by now and would remember New London as a place where he received care for his ailments, and his Garfield Avenue family would be whole and happy for his visits. Who gets called in an emergency matters. A wise man once said, when all you have in your toolbox are hammers, all your problems look like nails. And the people's budget process revealed here in New London, we have too many hammers and not enough pliers or putty spreaders or first aid kits to extend the metaphor beyond its usefulness. So I look forward to the repeal of Ordinance 0106-14-2, Section 15.62, and that repealing this ordinance would free up resources that could be used to diversify our toolbox and give us real solutions to the full spectrum of problems that confront our community. So I thank you for your consideration and look forward to our discussion tonight. Thanks.
Hi, this is Mia Moore. I'm at 202 Coleman Street. I think some would agree that the racial injustices stem from the color of someone's skin, unfortunately, but what I discuss now could help the city in deciding what is best regarding police. However, sometimes there is a fundamental aspect that can help the community in some way that we don't realize could solve problems. One way to curb racial disparities and injustices seem to be the simple act of supporting Black-owned businesses. In New London, I see very few businesses owned by Black and brown people, but I had high hopes I could be one of the thriving ones when I started my jewelry business here. Not that I started it here, I've been doing it since 2007, but bringing it into New London. Nevertheless, it may seem very easy for some of the community to readily offer their assistance to charitable groups to give back. As a Black woman of the community, my efforts I have offered have proven difficult to ascertain in connection between myself and any organization. Even a food bank that I volunteered for here in New London over near Trumbull, it was great overall, but it was interrupted with discriminatory kind of behavior with other female volunteers who were white. The reason I ask especially is because previously I mentioned my face touching modification device, and initially there was interest when I came to City Council many months ago. More development and improvements have been made, and the only aspect of my wearable art at my company, it offers community support and awareness. More development improvements have been made, and the only aspect of the wearable art my company offers that is missing is community support and awareness. I personally asked Mayor Passero to assist and was told to apply through organizations not direct within the city. I do not aim to profit from this device as it could save lives. Starting a nonprofit organization of my own may not be best for my time and attention at this time. But this is a device that could have helped essential workers in our community, schools and hospitals in London. Therefore, getting real-time information on where to volunteer may lead to other resources, especially since the pop-up market that the city did put out, it had to, I guess, no longer continue because of what's going on with the numbers rising in the pandemic. So my conclusion is that there should be more support for Black-owned businesses. Again, I did approach the city council with my device, my specific device that I'm not trying to profit from. And so I'd like to get city council to help me with being directed towards the charitable organizations that I can get involved in so that I can be of help that way and maybe connect the wearable health-driven device within New London community, something new and I think would be great to add. Thank you.
All right, I believe it's my turn. My name is Seth Lake, and I'm at 40 Sherman Street in New London, Connecticut. It's been brought to my attention that on the agenda tonight is a city ordinance that mandates a minimum of 80 officers to be employed by the city of New London. I'm opposed to this ordinance and support its repeal. Rather than cite statistics or studies, I will make a philosophical argument for the opposition of this ordinance. Police officers are meant to enforce the laws of the governmental power. Essentially, police and the prison system in tandem track down and punish people who don't obey the laws that elected officials have instantiated for that region. That's the ideology or intent of the two entities, at least. However, effectively, police officers are mostly traffic supervisors. That's what we see every day. And if the city is intending to do major upgrades to roads and infrastructure, then maybe they need traffic directors, but they don't have to be police officers who carry a dangerous responsibility and oftentimes a dangerous mentality, excuse me, towards the people they are meant to protect and serve. Police are an extension of government power and a form of forceful domination over its people. Domination can come in different forms, the best of which is rational domination. If the government makes laws based on ideas and claims that are justifiable, the people will follow them willingly. The worst form of domination, which laws would ideally be designed to prevent, is domination through force, i.e. rape, murder, assault, theft, and imprisonment and confinement. Police and the prison system have been absolved of and empowered to exercise force through rape, murder, assault, theft, and imprisonment. This shows a lack of the government interest and or ability to maintain power through rationality and intelligence. People commit crimes and are imprisoned for many different preventable reasons, most, if not all of which boil down to lack of fulfillment of basic human needs. If the government and its laws were designed to prevent, for, or maintain the opportunity for people to provide for themselves,
1 minute.
Laws would scarcely be broken, negating the need for an extension of forceful domination through the police force. If you don't believe this to be true, you have a very nihilistic opinion of humanity and its morals and might consider questioning your own morals, as we tend to fear in others what we ourselves are capable of. My objective in saying all this is for everyone who hears this to call into question the intention behind the mandate to expand the police force. Based on what I've just outlined and what I understand and believe, the intention of this move is to fail in the government's true purpose, to fail the people it claims to serve, to fail to meet their needs or to allow them the accessibility to meet their own needs, thrusting people into desperation, and true desperation adheres to no laws, which is where the police force comes in. You have to control and dominate people somehow, and if you can't do it through reason and intelligence, the physical force is the solution of the government. As members of government, supporting this mandate is an admission of failure and an attempt to fail in the future. Your morals are questionable if you support this mandate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, all three. And now we'll go to our next three. All right, the next three will be Jay, Denise Boyd, and then Megan. Those are the next three.
Good evening, counselors.
Yep.
I hope I'm the Jay that you're talking about.
Yes, say Jay Wheeler, you are.
Okay. All right. Thank you. First of all, it's been a long time, and I thank you all for your service to the city. I know it's not easy, the jobs that you have to do. but I appreciate your service. I would implore you to refer to a study that was done back in around 2008. If you haven't already seen it, please take time to read it. It's an OSS study. OSS was a company out of Texas. Dr. Salmon was the individual that came and really did an in-depth survey with his team with respect to the condition of the police department and its staffing and all other aspects with respect to the police department and the way it operates. And one of the recommendations of page 40, you'll see that it's recommending 81 officers. Now that was back in 2008. So, you know, those of us who've been around a long time, even before some of the speakers were even born here, remember Blackhall, Press Street, and some of the other streets that were riddled with some serious crime issues. Not that they've all gone away, but a lot of them were resolved between partnerships with the police department. You had an anti-violence team at one time. There was a lot of big problems. And I'm fearful that, you know, we're gonna go back to those days. And I'm fearful that there was a lot of people that did a lot of work. Too many people partnered with our police department to rid our city of drugs, crime, and that was pretty much during the crack epidemic. You know, I'm not saying that we still have that. I don't know, but you know, I think we really need to find and look at the uniform crime reports and see if the empirical data and find out if things have improved, which would justify reducing the staff numbers. I don't believe that to be true. And secondarily, even if it is true, we know for a fact that officers are going from call to call to call. Earlier this evening, we heard Ryan Socio, the crime prevention officer, telling us that he had to wear many hats. And that goes for almost every police officer in the police department. They don't just do one function. So I think that we really need to look at that. And I'm hopeful that we don't take an axe to the police budget or the, you know, I really would like to see us use a scalpel and figure a way to, you know, make improvements together. I don't think this is the right thing to do. The minimum manpower staffing ordinance we're talking about tonight really hasn't worked. But I want to believe that the mayor had good intentions when he created it, when he was a counselor. And he wanted to help build the police department because that was part of the recommendation. We don't need another study done. The study was already done in depth. And the study, if you read the study, it interviewed people throughout the city in all socioeconomic statuses. And it was a very interesting study and it was comprehensive.
All right, this
Okay,
is President.
thank you.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Wheeler. At this time, I'm going to call on Councilor Berg to read Denise Boyd's public comment.
This is Councilor Berg. Thank you, President Dominguez. I'm reading a public comment submitted by Denise Boyd. Thank you for your patience and time. My name is Denise Boyd. I live at 73 Connecticut Avenue. I am giving testimony tonight as a member of the People's Budget Coalition. I ask that the council vote to repeal City Ordinance 1614-2, Section 15 through 62, regarding police sizes for our city, as stated in my written public testimony at the 6 p.m. Public Safety Committee earlier tonight. I am thankful to God for helping me to see that I have a purpose to serve Him in all that I do, loving Him with my whole being and my heart, and to love my neighbors like I love myself. He also gave me a vision of an old abandoned park that was turned into a Garden of Eden that I helped design on my block. The area was called the hub of Central New London in the McDonald Park neighborhood. For years, I dreamed of this park. After I became disabled due to limitations caused by a stroke in 2015, Fresh New London came knocking at my door doing a survey about building a community garden at McDonald Park in my neighborhood. I believe God sent them to me. Ever since that day, I have been involved in building up my community and to provide healing to my neighbors through fresh produce and food access. Through Fresh, I met a single mother, Megan Perro, organizing parents in the community to educate ourselves on advocating education injustices in our city's education system, which led me to our city council meetings, board of education meetings, and local government. I've been with Step Up New London since 2017. I believe all things happen for a reason. Step Up New London was blessed to share space with Hearing Youth Voices, a youth-led nonprofit organization fighting for justice, equity for all Black and brown youths and youth that need a safe space to make conversation for change. I'm here tonight because I witnessed years of conversations at Hearing Youth Voices and have had in their safe space. They put in the research, time, and thought into ways to make New London a better city that works for all of its youth. I read and support their findings to be factual and truthful. Let us not let their work be done in vain. Let's vote to support them by being honest with ourselves. We don't need 80 police officers. We need to reallocate funds and listen to the youth. Yes, it's a lot of work to revise and rebuild our city, but it must be done. We have the ability and the opportunity to support and work with our city's youth. I learned volunteering with local nonprofits that one of the ways God wants us to show love to our neighbors by taking interest in our city's development. He has allowed me to not just love the neighbors next door, but all who live in the city of ours. Please let us encourage our youth and assist them with building a community that works for them. Then we can take some of that money and create an education that works for them as well. Show them that we can build up neighborhoods that work for all of us in the great city of New London. God, I trust you all to be wise in spending and managing our city's finances. Vote and support their request tonight. Thank you, Denise Boyd.
All right, so I'll just go. My name is Megan Parrott from 44 Summer Street in New London. I'm asking that you repeal and reduce the ordinance for the 80 officer mandate. Back in July, City Council, you all unanimously voted and approved the resolution declaring racism a public health crisis. In an intentional effort to address what our community safety and care should actually be like. As mentioned earlier in the Public Safety Committee meeting, there are several areas in Connecticut with similar populations that employ less officers. It was also mentioned that the crime rate in New London has actually reduced. Although police are always uplifted as a reason for this, I would also like to name, similar to Denise, the amazing organizations that are actually holding it down that also support this that outcome. It feels really excessive that although New London is only 6 square miles, not counting water, and has a moderate population, that in 6 square miles, we would really need 80 police officers. And given the fact that 40% of those calls made to 911 and that the police department is responding to were actually meant for folks dealing with mental health crisis. It actually feels like it would be the best interest for our community to actually be looking into ways to support Human Services Department, which only has 1.5 employees. The rationalization that we need this amount of police because of the amount of calls made doesn't actually make sense when, if it's redirected appropriately, police in fact would not have to be the ones responding to these calls. And our Black and brown residents wouldn't face criminalization, harassment, fear, legitimate danger, and actually receive the services that they need. Charmaine actually pointed out the fact that funding other avenues will actually relieve this overburdened officers taking on calls and jobs that they actually shouldn't need to.
1 minute.
And so there's a wealth of evidence that clearly highlights the fact that when you invest in areas like social services, affordable housing, mental health care, education, youth programs, green spaces, all these things, right? That you actually reduce crime, you reduce substance abuse, you reduce poverty, and actually also in turn create an investment because people are able to buy homes. People aren't reliant as much. Like when you're actually building our people up, then we do well. And so this is an effort in building us up and not criminalizing us and breaking us down. And so we're asking that you be proactive and preventative and actually invest in the areas that we really need. And again, I'm asking that you repeal and reduce the 80 officer mandate. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez. And lastly, I will be reading a public comment from Shanaika Farias. Hello, I would like for my public comment to be read at tonight's City Council meeting. Tonight, I speak on behalf of my community calling our city councilors to repealing ordinance number 01-06-14-2, section 15-62. As stated in previous meetings, compared to larger Connecticut cities, New London is over-policed. In 2016, New London had 28.4 officers for every 10,000 residents, a higher rate than both New Britain with 22.1 officers and Stamford with 20.5 officers. For too long here in New London and everywhere, we have been silenced, and tonight as councilors, you have the power to make the choice to listen to our residents. Tonight, the choice to make is clear, the right choice. Repeal ordinance number 01-06-14-2, section 15-62. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your comments this evening. And at this time, we'll move to petitions. There are no petitions. And now we move on to response to public comment. Any councilor that wishes tonight to respond to public comment, you may do so. Let me see your hands and I'll. Okay, seeing none, we shall continue. All right. Reports and communications. All right, Director of Law. Any questions for Attorney Landrigan? Okay.
Council President Dominguez, this
Yes,
is
sir.
Councilor John Sadi.
Mhm.
I do have a couple of questions for Attorney Landrigan.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. So Attorney Landrigan, in your report dated February 22nd, on the general side, number 3, meeting with city and Mohawk regarding development and potential impact on city shellfish beds. Could you please explain that?
Yeah, for the record, Attorney Jeffrey Landrigan speaking. The city of New London has about 250 acres of shellfish grounds in the Thames River north of 95, which we are currently leasing to a shellfish company to farm. And Mohawk is doing a development right on the shoreline. And there needs to be some coordination between the waterward improvements that Mohawk is making and the activities going on in the shellfish grounds. And so we're working with ODP in conjunction with representatives from Mohawk and representatives from the shellfish farming company.
Thank you very much. And also on litigation number 2, State Pier MDP. Prepare a pre-hearing report listing witnesses and exhibits to file with DEP.
Yep, Attorney Jeffrey Landrigan speaking. That is the license that the Connecticut Port Authority is asking for from DEEP. And we are an intervening party in that action. And we had a deadline of Friday to put together the arguments and the witnesses that we plan on presenting during that public hearing, which is presently scheduled to begin on March 30th.
And last but not least, in the labor area, number 3, police contract review of contract regarding negotiations. Are we presently in negotiations with the police union?
Yeah, Attorney Jeffrey Landrigan speaking. The negotiations haven't really gotten underway. What has occurred is that the union has given us the necessary written notice that with the contract expiring as of June 30th of this year, they would like to engage the city in collective bargaining. And so we're starting the process of getting that together.
3 months before the contract expires.
Attorney Jeffrey Landrigan, yes, yep, which is not uncommon.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, President Dominguez. I have no further questions of Attorney Landrigan.
Okay, this is President Dominguez. Thank you, Councilor Sadi. At this time, I'm going to call on council committee reports. Let's start with Councilor Burke.
Thank you very much, President Dominguez. Earlier this evening, this is Councilor Burke. Earlier this evening at 5:30, the City Council's Public Works Committee met. Invitees were Director Sear, as well as Terry Horton, Chair of the New London's Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Annually, the Pedestrian Advisory Committee submits a list of recommendations, which will be on the agenda to receive for the record. There was discussion as well as an amendment made from a suggestion that came in after the these recommendations were added for the Public Works Department to look into increasing accessibility along the Michael and Anthony Road apartments on Chester Street to Clark Lane for increased accessibility to the Waterford border and therefore the Stop and Shop grocery store. So that was it, and thank you very much.
All right, this is President Dominguez. Thank you, Councilor Burke, for your report. At this time, I'm going to call on Councilor Booker.
Thank you very much, President Dominguez. This is Councilor Booker, Chair of the Public Safety Committee. During the public safety meeting tonight, we heard from 6 residents during the public comment regarding the staffing levels of the New London Police Department. The community wants to ensure that the city meets the needs of all residents in regard to safety, mental health, and social services. Also, we heard from Police Officer Ryan Socio, who mentioned that police departments need better technology. Officer fatigue is also an issue as well. New London Police Department is treading waters and wearing many hats. So that's the only comment so far from the Public Safety Committee meeting this evening. Thank you very much, President Dominguez.
President Dominguez, thank you, Councilor Booker, for your report on Public Safety Committee. And at this time, I'm going to call on President Pro Tem Natatas to give her report.
President Dominguez, we had an administration committee tonight at 6:30 p.m. The majority of the CAM items were on reappointments for the Beautification Committee. There was also one for the Citizen Advisory Committee. And then there was some revision that was made to the document appointments to boards and committees that will be that'll be on record on the CAM tonight for review. Thank you, President Dominguez.
Thank you, President Dominguez. Thank you, President Pro Tem Natatas, for your Administration Committee report. And at this time, I'm going to call on Mayor's Office Communications. Mayor Michael Pastro, the floor is yours, sir.
Good morning, President Dominguez, members of the council. First, thank you all for your hard work. You have a long agenda ahead of you tonight, and you have some really tough issues that you have to wrestle with. So appreciate all of that, and welcome to the members of the community and staff that's on the call. I'm going to be really brief tonight because I know that everyone's anxious to get into some of these tough topics that you have on the agenda. First, I want to just thank everybody that organized a couple of important events in the city last Saturday. We had the celebrated Dominican Independence Day at City Hall, and you'll see the Dominican flag flying proudly in front of City Hall. Also, the first Black History Month walk took place on Martin Luther King Boulevard, AKA Coleman Street, which was a terrific event and some brave souls in some very tough weather. So we thank the community for that. We did have a promotion, and we congratulate Lieutenant Matt Galante for his promotion to captain. Well-deserved. He has served our community honorably, and he's a great new and young leader in our department. We also swore in 3 new firefighters in the fire department last Friday, Kevin Feifel, Jason Urban, and Jose Vasquez, and we welcome them to our great fire department. They're eager to serve our city and to protect us. I continue to testify before legislative committees on issues that are important to the city. The Transportation Committee was debating or accepting testimony on a number of bills that related to the Connecticut Port Authority. So I appreciate the General Assembly's efforts to keep trying to work with that troubled agency, which happens to have a great impact on our city. And I thank our legislative delegation for working for New London's interests in that, including finding us a seat. Also testified before the Appropriation Committee for some sort of support for the Gard Arts Center. The performing arts centers in our state are cultural institutions that are really important. It's going to take a lot of work to get them through that. They were the first to close, and they'll be the last to open. And we certainly will need that institution to help drive our recovery moving forward. We all know how important that was up to a year ago when essentially our lives just took an incredible detour. We're hoping to be able to get back to that as soon as we can. So we're working closely with the Gard Arts to keep them healthy. keep them going until we can start convening there again for some great performances. Also, I testified on pilot reform. I strongly support, the city strongly supports Senator Looney's three-tier pilot reform proposal. This is our greatest opportunity to reform this broken system that I've seen since I've been involved in public elected office. So, and there was some good news. It did pass a significant hurdle today in the House and the Senate. Included in that bill it does make the Connecticut Port Authority, well, the state pier property once again comes within the umbrella of the pilot formula. So, along with a significant revenue that we negotiated with Ørsted and Eversource, that will be another piece of that revenue stream. So we will now have revenue through pilot, such as it is. It depends on funding year to year, but we'll have revenue from agreements with the Connecticut Port Authority, agreements with the port operator, Gateway, and now a significant flow of revenue from Ørsted and Eversource. So this is the significant part of that is still a year or two down the road, but it'll be phasing in. But I think it'll help provide a great deal more opportunities for our city, and it's well deserved. Hopefully it's brief. We thought we were out of the cold weather, but there is an emergency cold weather warning that is out for tonight. Most of you at home, I'll have to step out in it when I leave City Hall, but we do have cold weather protocols in effect tonight. We just want to advise people that 211 is the number that you call if you do find yourself in trouble over the night and through tomorrow. Fortunately, we have great partnerships. We're set up for this in our partnership with the Homeless Hospitality Center and other partners, other facilities that are open and ready to help people that could find themselves in trouble, especially those people experiencing homelessness in our community. One piece of happy news, last Sunday, February 21st, I was honored to be able to declare that day Florence Clark Day in the city of New London. Reverend Florence Clark reached her 80th birthday, an amazing citizen, amazing service to our community, and just what I consider one of those elders that just gives us her wisdom and helps us move forward. And I'll keep that in mind as I listen to the debate tonight on the difficult issue of the 80-person ordinance, which I share a good deal of responsibility for since it's there. In 2015, it was another tough time for our police department. It's a tough time for our community. And, at the time, the ordinance, I believe, served the purpose that it should, which was to express morale and support for a police department that had really lost a lot of its members through attrition and officers transferring out, and morale was very, very low. That's never a good thing for such an important piece of our community. I just like you to consider as you're conducting this debate that it's not a zero-sum game, and a lot of the comments seem to assume that it is. If we spend money here, then we can't spend money there. We've been working very hard to bring the city back to fiscal health so that we can afford to fund all of our needs. And happy to work with Jeannie Milstein and Human Services to address some of the needs of our folks, which is certainly a goal for anybody that serves in elected office. We have developed programs and methods that have helped. We focused first on reducing the number of emergency calls and that pressure on our emergency medical services, repeat calls, calls related to mental illness, calls related to substance abuse, and the opioid epidemic. And those, those programs have been successful. They've reduced repeat frequent emergency ambulance services by about 75%, and that's just phenomenal. We're also, our Navigator program has helped and is really paying off now, because, as you know, the scourge of the opioid epidemic is really, it's really spiking during these times of this pandemic. We believe that having set up that, that program to help people, to follow people, and in partnership with our fire department has worked. We think that we can work on these programs to expand them into the same type of pressures that are on our police department, with 40% of the calls being related to mental health. So all I want to go on to this, and I'll end quickly, is we are working on developing alternative methods, better methods to deliver the services that we all want to deliver for folks in need. But we can't just, we have to build the new system before we dismantle the old system. I'm very proud of the work of the Public Safety Policy Review Committee, anxious to work with council on implementing those recommendations. There was no recommendation to reduce staffing in the police department. I think that's important. And so I caution the council, and I urge the council to consider the real needs of our police department, the value they bring, and let's work to make sure that the policing that they deliver to us is the policing that reflects what our community wants. And it does not necessarily correlate with numbers. We will find that out as we work along, but just focusing on numbers, I don't think is the correct correlation. So I thank you for your time. I really appreciate your work, and I appreciate the discussion today. I think it's very important, and I'm willing to work to accomplish what we all want to go. I think we all want the same goals. I think we're just arguing about how to get there. Not arguing, but debating how to get there. So thank you, President Dominguez, for indulging me.
No problem, sir. This is President Dominguez at this time. Any questions for the mayor? All right, okay, go ahead, Councilor Goodwin.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment. The last day of Black History Month, February 28th, will be known as Ichabod Pease Day for years to come. So he missed that, so I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. Thanks.
Apologize. You're absolutely right. And that the video you rolled out yesterday, Councilor Goodwin, the work you did with Landmarks, Tom Shook, other partners, tremendous. That was a great, I think everybody was celebrating that moment yesterday evening as we watched that video. So congratulations on that success. And I do apologize for overlooking
that. This is President Dominguez. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Goodwin, for reminding us of that. Obviously, I think almost the entire city and many others saw it. It was really incredible.
And if you missed it, it's still available.
Yes, yes, it's been shared. I don't know how many times already, maybe 60 or 70. So we'll keep on sharing and keep on spreading the good news there. All right, so at this time.
It's pretty exciting too. Yeah. I just want to jump in one more minute because I'm excited about this. I mean, the Black History Trail, that's the first marker for. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that puts us on the map. I think that just creates, generations and generations of a lost history that I think is perhaps really one of the greatest legacies that we've inherited in this city, back to our roots as a seaport town. So I think I'm really, really excited about that. So all the effort that's going into that, hooray for that. So, thank you.
Okay, this is President Dominguez. Thank you again, Mayor Passo. All right, Councilor Booker, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just want to also, give special thanks to Debbie Phillips, who put together the Black History. She's a lifelong resident. She did a phenomenal job bringing all of us together on Saturday, February 27th from 1 to 2 on the Black History Month walk. So thank you very much, Mayor Passero, for mentioning that. I just wanted to mention her name and the great work she did for our community as well.
Okay, this is President Dominguez. Seeing nothing else, we will show consent. Thank you, Mayor Michael Pastro. All right, at this time, we're going to move into the consent agenda. President Pro Tem Natsatsis.
President Dominguez, the consent agenda proposal set forth at the regular meeting for March 1st, 2021 are either 1, accepted for the record, 2, referred to committee name, 3, waive for committee to be acted upon as proposed, or 4, consented to as proposed. Can I get a second?
Second, Councilor Goodwin.
Okay, here we go. All right, so 7.0 unfinished business, 7.1A, B, C.
Pull.
Thank you. Councilor Goodwin. All right, write that down. D, E, F, G, H, I. All right. 7.2, 7.3, 7.4. Okay, 8.0 new business, 8.1.
Pull.
Councilor Sadi, pull.
Okay. Councilor Sadi. All right, 8.2.
Pull. Councilor Goodwin.
Thank you, sir. All right. 8.3, 8.4, 8.5.
Pull.
Councilor Booker. 8.5. Okay. 8.6.
Councilor Goodwin, pull.
Thank you. 8.7, A and B, 9.0, 10.0 executive sessions and adjournment. Okay, President Pro Tem Natsatsis.
That all items having the unanimous support of the City Council are hereby adopted with a single roll call vote. The motions are seconded, the chair calls the roll, and the chair declares the motions to be unanimously voted and adopted. Can I get a second?
Councilor Goodwin, second.
Thank you. It's been seconded by Councilor Goodwin. At this time, City Clerk Ayala, go ahead, roll call vote.
Councilor Booker Jr.,
Yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Dice,
Yes.
President Dominguez,
Yes.
Councilor Goodwin,
Yes.
Councilor Sadi,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Natsatsis.
Yes.
7 yes.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick reminder, this is President Dominguez. Make sure you move to cam, all right, before you begin. At this time, we'll start with Councilor Goodwin, 7.1C.
Move to Cam.
Councilor Dice, second.
Move to committee.
Okay, President Dominguez here. What committee you want to move it to, sir?
Excuse me, my apologies. Councilor Goodwin here, the Economic Development Committee.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, all right. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those opposed say nay. Okay, the motion carries. All right, it will be moved to Economic Development. Thank you. All right, next is Councilor Sadi, 8.1.
Move to Cam. City Council hereby repeals section 15-62 of the city's code of ordinances mandating the size of the city's police force. This ordinance is given its first and second reading in the process of passage by title only. All councilors having copies, in the third reading of subject ordinance is adopted by a roll call vote. Number one, well, I need a second.
Yeah, Councilor Sadi, this is President. You're gonna need a second for that.
This is Councilor Burke. I will second.
All right, it's been properly seconded by Councilor Burke. Go ahead. You got the floor, Councilor Sadi.
As many people have heard in the past, I do not support or a CAM where we're waiving readings, second and third reading. So for that reason alone, I'll be voting against it, but also having sat on this council and being fully aware of the wonderful job that our police officers do in this city to protect us with the limited resources they have. This, I believe, is the first step in an attempt to cut funding to our police department at a time when it's important to make sure that we support our officers in these trying times. As I believe it was Officer Socio had said during the committee meeting in Minneapolis, where a lot of this where a lot of the problems started, and they moved forward and quickly to defund. They are now spending tons of dollars to refund to get police back on. And I'm fearful that taking this first step will lead us down the wrong path for low police morale. And I support city employees, so I plan on voting against this, the repeal. Thank you for your time.
All right, this is President Dominguez. I just want to make aware everyone that Chief Reichert is here too to be questioned. And at this time, I saw Councilor James Burke. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, President Dominguez. This is Councilor Burke. Through you to Attorney Londrigan. Attorney Londrigan, are there any other city departments in our code of ordinances that mandate the size of the department?
This is Attorney Jeffrey Londrigan. I'm not aware of one. I mean, I haven't looked, but off the top of my head, I'm going to say no. Although, I'm sorry, there might be something fire related. I'm not 100% certain. I think there are some things maybe related to fire, but that's the only one that's coming to mind.
Thank you very much. This is Councilor Burke. Through you, President Dominguez, to Chief Reichert, since this ordinance has passage in 2015, has the New London Police Department ever been comprised of a minimum of 80 officers?
Since 2018, we've been working towards that number. It's always been a goal of the police department to have that number of people, of sworn officers. However, we're at the highest level presently since that time.
This is Councilor Burke. Thank you very much, Chief Reichert. So as the reason why I wanted to start with those two questions are just to kind of illustrate of why I believe that we're here today. I understand I've gone back and read the council minutes when this ordinance was first passed 6 years or so ago now. And quite frankly, as before I was elected, as an activist in our community advocating around budget season, and as a counselor, I've seen what the chief was just referring to, an attempt to adhere to this ordinance result in almost de facto increases to the police budget. There is nothing on record in terms of how many sanitation workers need to work in our public works department, on how many people with human services skills need to be employed by the city. As one of the public speakers I thought very eloquently pointed out, municipal government needs to adjust to what has dealt with us. This pandemic was not anything that was on our horizons. We need to be able to be fluid, and especially in a city like New London, where we are very financially strained on our resources, we need to make sure that we are making the best use of those resources to not only benefit the community to our best ability, but to work to undo some of the harms that have been inflicted on communities of color, on poor people. So I stand, and I've stated this before, strongly in support of the ordinance this evening. And I hope it passes, and I hope it begins to start a conversation about what an equitable budget looks like in the city of New London. I also just wanted to point out, as I did in the last time this was on our agenda, contrary to what Officer Socio made mention of in the Public Safety Committee, when last summer, when protests took to the streets in the millions across our nation, thousands here in the city of New London, unfortunately, our municipal budget was already adopted at that time. Two cities in Connecticut that hadn't had municipal budgets already adopted were New Haven and Hartford. The city of New Haven did cut $4 million to the police budget, and the city of Hartford did cut $1 million from the police budget. And we haven't, I've got friends in both of those cities. I haven't heard of any, rampant increases of crime there. And again, what we're voting on tonight is not an appropriation. It's an ordinance change that, in my view, will stop this de facto increases that we've seen in recent years and allow us to have an honest and open dialogue about what the equitable funding between all of our different departments are. So I've made my position clear. I thank everyone for being here tonight, and I have nothing further. Thank you, President Dominguez.
Thank you, Councilor Burke. This is President Dominguez. At this time, I'm going to call on Councilor Goodwin.
Thank you, President. Through you, Council President, to Attorney Londrigan. Does the possibility of repealing this ordinance prevent us from funding and/or the administration and the police chief from staffing policing at adequate levels should they feel the need to?
This is Attorney Jeffrey Londrigan. No, all you're doing is getting rid of a number. The city might decide that it wants to employ more police officers, so it wouldn't be limiting the city's ability to increase the size of its force if it wanted to.
Thank you, sir. Through you, Council President, to Chief Reichard. Chief, do you feel that us repealing this ordinance hindered you from being able to adequately staff our police department?
As I said earlier, that 80 number was a goal that we were trying to get at. I look at the way we try to factor in the number of officers we need. Each full-time position of an officer on the street 24/7, 365 days a year takes 2.5 people to fill that for the 365 days a year on each shift. We do a minimum of 5 officers on the road, 1 supervisor on the road, 1 officer in-house, and 1 supervisor in-house. That's our minimum staffing that we will put on the road that I feel comfortable putting out on the city at any time with safety issues in mind. With that alone, it would require 20 officers and supervisors assigned to each of the 3 different shifts. That's just the uniform sector. That doesn't include investigations. I'm looking through the screen right here. I see a lot of faces, and I know for a fact that people, even city councilors here, have used the resources of our detective division for investigations that have taken place. So those are long-term confidential investigations that require specialized detectives to handle the cases. You would add those on top of the staffing on the street alone. So it's just not uniform officers, it's the plainclothes aspect of it also, and the command staff of the police department that you need to staff.
Understood. I'm not sure what the reference was in terms of city councilors utilizing the services that you described. I think as citizens, that's what we are allowed to do. I don't think we dispute the wonderful work that our crime division, our investigation division, our patrol division does. I think here we're here to discuss, and the question was, do we prohibit you from staffing our police department adequately with the repeal or possible repeal of this ordinance? Do we prohibit you from getting to that staffing level?
Each year I request the adequate number of police officers I believe we should fund. If those are funded every year, then we can get to the numbers that of adequate staffing in the police department. Presently, we are at 73 sworn officers, plus myself is 74. I'm looking at funding at least that number for next year. Of that number, 6 are federally paid for 100%, which amounts to about $610,000 reimbursement to the city, or about 18% of our department's total budget is reimbursable through that grant.
Thank you, and thank you for the last grant that we used to hire the new police officers. I noticed that they were diverse, young, and I'm appreciative of them, and hopefully they can help to shift a more community-centric policing culture there. So thank you. No further questions for you, Chief Reichard. Just one quick comment. So it seems as though the chief and the law director have made it pretty clear, or somewhat clear, that changing this ordinance does not, in fact, prohibit us, nor the administration or the chief, for coming back to us with adequate staffing levels that are based on data, facts, real-time research to help us, guide us in determining how many police should be on our streets. I am talking slowly because I know that there were others on the call, as well as a current police officer who seemed to imply that we were looking to decrease the number of police. And in fact, the conversation of discussion is with regards to an ordinance that mandates where we should be. We are looking to repeal that so that we have the flexibility to be fluid and base that on crime, on data, on needs, suggestions, etc. What we're trying to do is be more proactive because conversation is not happening. We all need to ask ourselves this now: how did we get here? Because we are not being proactive in policing. Policing is not a brown problem, it's not a black problem, it's a community problem. So collectively, we need to be proactive in having these conversations. Repealing this ordinance is doing that, allowing us to be able to have those conversations based off of research. And if we worked collectively, none of us would be scared to be able to indulge in those conversations, nor would we be sitting here debating on whether we should repeal an ordinance that's not based on research nor facts. And if I can be so blunt, that report that was given was based off of data that was about a decade ago. The demographics, the crime rates, and much more in New London has changed since then. I am more than happy to indulge the conversation of reviewing a new study, but in terms of right now, currently, I think it's in the best interest of our council to make sure that we base our decisions on setting what is the vision and mission of New London, and setting, and by us passing an ordinance or keeping an ordinance that does not adhere to that is not in the best interest of the duty that we are so privileged to serve in. So thank you for your time.
Okay, this is President Dominguez. Thank you, Councilor Goodwin. At this time, any other councilor that wishes to engage in the conversation? Councilor Booker, is that you? Okay, you're okay, Councilor Booker. Go ahead, sir.
Through you, President Dominguez, to Attorney Longigan. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for the clarification on repealing does not limit the city in hiring the number of officers they need. Attorney Longigan, can you recollect the history and background around the city ordinance section 15-62 that was passed on March 17th, 2014?
Yeah, Attorney Jeffrey Londrigan. As far as the ordinance itself, it wasn't a document that our office was asked to put together. But my recollection was that at the time, the police department was seeing quite a few officers leave for other jobs, other municipalities, or retirements as well. There is language in our charter that talks about the city council passing an ordinance to set the staffing levels of the police department. And so at the time, an ordinance was put together pursuant to that section. I believe it's section 73 of our charter, to put together a number to attempt to achieve because of the current status of our police department and the loss of officers leaving for other jobs in other municipalities. So that was brought forward at that time to sort of address that issue, and also the issue of the charter kind of stating that the council was within its discretion to set a staffing number.
Thank you very much, Attorney Longigan.
You're welcome.
Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yep. And through you, President Dominguez, to Chief Reichert. When it comes to the data that was recently shared, can you just, for the residents, can you share in the last year, what percentage of calls to the police department were for mental health or social service needs?
We'd have to do an adequate breakdown, but the numbers Jeannie Milstein quoted, about 40% would be correct, related to mental health and addiction services. What people forget is a lot of times there's violence involved in these calls. And a lot of times we are sent to calls with people with mental health issues who are having violent episodes. Those are not the kind of calls you are going to send a social worker to. You're going to have to send law enforcement to those calls. So you can hire social workers alongside law enforcement, but you're going to need trained professional law enforcement to respond to some of these calls. And it happens on a daily basis.
Thank you very much, Chief Riker. I have no further questions at this moment.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez. At this time, any other counselor has questions or comments that hasn't spoken yet? Okay, I'd like to just to say something quickly. I just want to, this conversation tonight is great that we're having. There's a lot of answers that I got from a lot of the questions that Councilor Goodwin asked. The reality is that, we are not defunding the police, like obviously has been stated. We are not hating on the police. That's another thing. We need to understand that we have needs in this city. We've been compared to Minneapolis and Portland. No, we're not Minneapolis and we're not Portland. These are like, millions of people live in these cities. All right, but what we do have is that we have needs. We have a lot of issues that our police officers are not trained or equipped, all right? And obviously I was part of the, myself and Curtis Goodwin, we were part of the Public Safety Policy Review Board that Mayor Passo put together. And we were able to interview the Denver Police Department, and they have a unit there that they have what you call clinicians or co-responders who go alongside police officers, something like what Chief Riker just mentioned. Obviously, one of the recommendations from the Public Safety Policy Review Board was to increase Human Services Department, something that we need. The evidence, the data is there. There's things that we have to change in our city, but it has to come from us talking and having these discussions. We live in this city. We want this to be a safe city. We want the city for everyone to be equipped, but we have to have conversations. Sometimes it feels like it's like we're fighting against each other, but I don't see this tonight. I think we're having a dialogue, we're having a conversation, and it is a most needed conversation that we have to have. So with that said, I also agree with, this is not an appropriations ordinance. This is just to repeal, okay, the set goal of 80 officers, all right? And again, that's gonna give us, like it was mentioned before, the fluidity to be able to see how many officers we need eventually. So I am in support of repealing the ordinance tonight for various reasons that I just stated. But again, this is going to be a dialogue for us to continue to talk. There's recommendations coming down that we're going to have to deal with the budget. So with that said, if nobody else has any comments or questions, I'm going to move us to vote on this right now. Okay. All right. So this is an ordinance. At this time, I'm going to ask, it's a roll call vote. So I'm going to ask City Clerk Ayala to please call out.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Dice,
Yes.
President Pro Temp Natartez,
Yes.
Councilor Goodwin,
Yes.
President Dominguez,
Yes.
Councilor Booker Jr.,
Yes.
Councilor Sadai.
No.
6 yes, 1 no.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez. The motion carries tonight to repeal Section 15-62 of the 80 officer. Okay, thank you. Let's continue with 8.2, Councilor Goodwin.
Move to Cam.
Councilor Burke, second.
Already, 8.2, guaranteed maximum price, also known as the GMP amendment for BDJMS. Through you, Council President, to Kate Turner, and I'll refer to her as Miss Turner, if you don't mind. Kate, Ms. Turner, excuse me. I was looking at the backup for it, and the point of contention or conversation for us, as I'm sure you're aware, are the ineligibles that are roughly a little higher than expected or that we would like. I wanted to hear from you on how you got to these ineligibles and is there room to bring those down?
Thank you, Councilor Goodwin. This is Kate Turner with Collier's Project Leaders. So the ineligible costs, as you noted in the backup documentation, we prepared a narrative to help to educate the both this committee, the School Building Maintenance Committee, and the taxpayers on ineligible costs through the Office of School Grants Construction and Review, which is the state entity that provides reimbursement funding for the school construction projects. So our project for Benny Dover Jackson Middle School is classified as an alteration project, an alteration and extension project. So this is noted as alteration because statutorily, more than 75% of the building is younger than 30 years old. So the Office of School Construction Grants and Review notes alteration projects as eligible for costs that are related directly to programming, ADA, and code violations. Excuse me one moment.
No worries.
So sorry about that.
No worries.
So with that being said, we started off for this initial review, as you can see from the ICW 4000 with the ineligible cost worksheet, which is the SCG 4000 form. So this is our second submission to the state, the first one being our PCR early phase projects. So that went from, as you can see in that sheet, and I'll just note that quickly, it went from initially at $7,831,000.
Ms. Turner, 1 second before proceed. Council President, is that just me hearing the feedback or?
No, I can't. You're right. You're correct. I hear feedback too.
Oh, please. I'm sorry. One moment.
Oh, no worries.
No, it's fine.
And it's less of the feedback from the adorable child. I think when
That's
you
right.
move, there's a little
I'm
bit.
so sorry.
No worries. It's a little bit of static when you move, not
Is that better?
much better. No worries. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so the ineligible costs from our first submission were at $7,831,169. We had a series of review meetings with the state and were able to reduce that total value to $5,884,979. You will note on the ineligible cost worksheet that about $2,092,000 of that are project costs. $3,792,000 of that are what we consider potentially eligible items. It's allowances and contingencies that will become eligible when spent on eligible items via change order. The School Building Maintenance Committee has established a pretty thorough process that's in place right now for school construction projects to review change orders. No work is authorized to begin until that committee has reviewed and approved all of these. So those potentially eligible items are in the hands of the School Building Maintenance Committee.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. Through you, Council President, to our Finance Director, David McBride. Director McBride, I'm sorry, what was that?
I just said good evening.
Oh, good evening, sir. Could you give us an update on, I'm sure you're well aware or apprised of the issue with the ineligibles. Could you give us some feedback or your recommendations in terms of those ineligibles? My main concern is the risk of the 80-20 and us coming in so high with the ineligibles. So I just wanted to hear some feedback as you are our Finance Director, sir.
Certainly, if I could Could I share my screen just to show it maybe visually easier to see some information?
Yes.
Can everyone see this screen?
Yes.
So this is something I've been working on for a few months since this ineligible worksheet has came out October 6th, I think it was approved. And as Kate Turner had mentioned, these scenarios I would not be concerned with. But when the ineligible list came out on 10/6, I was immediately concerned with the 5.884 million that Kate Turner referenced, and it was discussed several times. My concern is that this project, back when it was approved in 2014, was approved at an 80-20% reimbursement rate. So if you take $55 million and 20% reimbursable, the city approved reimbursing bonding $11 million of this project. My concern is if you look at the 5884, or if you look at what I had seen on 10/6, there's three components of the 5884 that Kate referenced. There's the 3.7, which how that works is it's currently ineligible. And over time, as Kate mentioned, those can become eligible over time as a school building maintenance committee or the state deems them eligible. What my concern is, there are two components in that form, the ICW form and the form SCG 4000 that Kate mentioned. There are $2.4 million of ineligibles. This 2.1 million, as Bob Selmer even stated on last week's call or the call a few weeks ago, is likely not to be changed from ineligible. This $325,000 is also not likely to be ineligible as well. It's the gym construction of the floor. So my concern is that these two components, we're starting off the way this project has been designed. If you flip over here, I took the 2092, which is likely not to be changed, and I split this 325 in half. The best case scenario as of right now, knowing what this form indicates and knowing that these will likely not change, is we are at a 77-23% split. The residents and the taxpayers did not approve this. They approved 80-20. More importantly, they approved $11 million of bonding. With this alone, we will need to go out to bond for $534,000 in addition to the $11 million, which was not what was approved. In addition, my concern is that this is before a shovel hits the ground. So my concern is what else may come about of this potential 3.7 or in owner contingency or other matters that may be deemed ineligible at a later time, which makes this much worse than the 534. Potentially, if it's 5884, which is what is stated on the SCG form 4000 now, we're looking at $3.6 million of over bonding beyond 11 million. So my concern is that this is not at 80-20. It likely will not be at 80-20 as we move forward, and approving this contract currently tonight sets us for a future financial issues for this city. So that's my concern. Bob Selmer even indicated at the last call, this is not going to change. So if this isn't going to change, I don't know how we can approve this contract as is, because we're going to be over what the city residents approved. Hopefully that answers, provides some clarity on the 80-20 you requested.
Thank you, Director McBride. That was my two questions, so I'll yield and wait for the return, Council President.
Thank you. This is President Minkus. Thank you, Councilor Goodwin. At this time, any other councilor? All right, President Pro Tem Natatas.
Thank you, President Dominguez. So we know that this was approved back in 2014, and here we are in 2021. And for me, the question is, and this is to Director of Finance, so what's the alternative to this? I mean, if we don't move forward with this project, what we start over? We just say no to the project. I mean, what are our options? Because it seems a little to me, when the voters approved this in 2014, I know that they were not thinking that we were still going to be discussing this in 2021. And every year that goes by, we incur the cost of that, of inflation, of unidentified undercosts that are associated with this project. So if I sound a little frustrated, I am. I mean, what are our options, the Director of Finance? through you.
I agree. There definitely has been some escalation in this project, so I understand your frustration. It's taking longer. I will defer to the Colliers on the detail on what's options, but I do think there are several options. I think one is, not that I recommend this, but an option is to redesign the project to fit within the the 49 million contract.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with my audio. I can't really clearly hear you. Can you speak into the microphone?
Yes, I'm sorry. Is that better?
That's better.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll defer to the Colliers experts in terms of what options exist. I'm not to the level of detail of that. I'm just frustrated that this project is, although it claims to be within budget, and it is within the 49 million, it's not within the budget that the city taxpayers approved, which is the 20% and 11 million. So I think from an option standpoint, I think the most important thing that could be done right now is to review and revise the SCG 4000 sheet. There are ineligibles, as I mentioned before, of 2.1. There are ineligible costs in that spreadsheet, such as computers for 350,000, movable chalkboards for 67,000, turf for 20,000. There's other costs in there that are not part of school construction projects, such as the gym floor for 325,000. So I think the first thing should be done is that spreadsheet, SCG 4000, should be reviewed in greater detail, and we should not be starting a project with ineligibles that $2.4 million to begin with.
Director McBride, and if we went that option, it's a big number. So what are you looking to save the city? 100, 200, 300,000, half a million? What have you been identified so far that this is going to be closer to what the taxpayers approved back in 2014?
I would like to go back and work with the state on making some of the items that they've deemed ineligible to be eligible expenditures.
Okay, those are I'll give other councilors an opportunity. President Dominguez, before I ask another question.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez. Councilor Burke, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, President Dominguez. This is Councilor Burke. I'll start with a quick comment, then go to a question. Just, for as someone who a year ago started on the School Building and Maintenance Committee, I know a lot of this process with the Office of State School Construction can be a bit to wrap your head around. So, I mean, it is when I voted in the election in 2014, there was a dollar amount and there was a pledge to build new schools. Yes, reimbursement rate was something that was discussed. But in terms of the details, through you, Mr. President, to Director McBride, so you just expressed concern over the 77 and 23 rather than 80-20 reimbursement ineligible projections for the South Campus. However, the current ineligible projections for the North Campus, a project almost twice as expensive, is 78-22. So my question is why the sound the alarm at 77-23 in a $50 million project and not sound the alarm at 78-22 in over $100 million project?
That's a good question. They're completely different projects. This project, as it's considered now, was changed to an alteration project, has these costs from the initial get-go that are ineligible from the start. There are these other, the other 3.7 or so million that Kate referenced to get to the 5.8. Those $3.7 million costs are costs that over time should become eligible. Those are the similar costs that could be related to the North Campus High School project. It's because this project's an alteration project, and the way it was designed, it's the 2.2 of ineligible costs that are causing the issue that the high school does not have. These costs, the issue is these costs, if we move forward with this GMP and move forward with the gym construction as an example, it's in the GMP for $320,000. These costs will not change. They are ineligible. Where on the North Campus, the high school project, those costs are still working through and you're moving them from contingency to eligible amounts. As Bob Selmer stated, this 2.1, 2.4 will not change. That's the concern I have.
This is Councilor Burke. Thank you, Director McBride. I'll do one more question through you to Kate Turner at Colliers International. So I guess the gist of my question, I would like to sort of, repeat the question President Pro Tem just offered, but in terms of, an alternative, I've been in the school building and maintenance committee meetings. I know that a lot of us, people like, or myself at least, I feel like the situation I came into a year ago was already not ideal. And no, these aren't ideal circumstances, now. The project could have probably been improved in a lot of points throughout its course since the past several years. But if you could, sort of just paint a picture, if council were to not approve tonight, what would that process be? Would it cause any jeopardy for the project as a whole? And what kind of timeline impact would it have on a project that's, already coming to a GMP 7 years after garnering community support?
Thank you, Councilor Burke. This is Kate Turner with Colliers. If the GMP were to not be passed tonight, we would be looking at our bids would expire and we would be going back out to bid. The construction climate is a little bit more uncertain now than it was when we first went out to bid. So there is a great chance that the numbers we're looking at right now would increase if we take the project out to bid. We're also looking at an extension to project timelines of probably 4 to 6 months.
Yeah, if I could, Councilor Burke, Chuck Warrington with Colliers Project Leaders. Just to add to what Kate said, in addition to that, if with respect to the ineligible costs, projects throughout the state, we don't design around ineligible costs to avoid ineligible costs. If you do that, you're going to strip most of your project from a lot of the requirements to improve it and to meet your educational specifications and to, frankly, to improve that building to where it needs to be and what the goals are. If we're trying to take those out, there's going to be downhill impacts that we're not seeing right now. In addition to that, there'd be additional services with on your soft costs, your architectural fees, your CM fees, extending our contract. We don't want to do that. We haven't done it yet, but there's other impacts besides taking out the ineligible costs. We can't speak for the state of Connecticut of how they would look at it. I can't speak to that. But there will be inflation, as it's been noted, to continue out. And if we've already tried to strip, excuse me, a lot and reuse what's existing in the building. The ineligibles are really replacing elements of your mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems primarily that have fallen out of maintenance and disrepair. So unfortunately, with the age of the building, as Kate Turner noted, not being of 30 years old, it doesn't qualify for renovation status statutorily. Many projects back in the 2014 era were sold as renovation projects. However, they never had the actual renovation status from the state. It was never granted from them. And a lot of districts we experienced had the same understanding of that. So, but needless to say, if we delay this and we have to go back out, there's going to be redesign costs, rescoping costs, re-advertising costs. We don't know what the bidding climate is volatile right now with materials, steel, copper, electrical equipment and materials. So there is, I think, a fair amount of risk associated with doing that.
This is Councilor Burke. Thank you, Mr. Warrington, Ms. Turner. I've used my 2 questions, so, but, Chuck, that was really what I was going to get into next was, the risk associated with, in my conversations with, folks on the project that we're not in any better of a bidding climate now than we were when this project, recently went out to bid, as well as, concerns of those soft costs. I understand, again, as I mentioned earlier, this is not far from a perfect scenario, but this is where we are now. It's 7 years in the making. When my oldest daughter was starting preschool, and now she'll be going to Benny Dover Jackson Middle School next year. So I think it's time to just get a shovel in the ground and do our best for our children. So this is Councilor Burke. Nothing further. Thank you, President Dominguez.
All right, thank you, President Dominguez. Yeah, thank you, Councilor Burke. Any other councilor? Councilor, let me call on Councilor Dice first.
Councilor Dice, I guess one of my question is, when you was explaining the project, Ms. Turner, you stated that there's some things that's still not finalized. So we're getting this request for funding and we don't have the full package. I just want to make sure that's what my understanding. There's still some areas that that you guys are looking at. Did I understand that right? Could you clarify? Because I want to make sure that I heard you correctly.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Dice. This is Kate Turner with Colliers. So to clarify, the CAM that's in front of us today, the guaranteed maximum price, this is the construction contract with O&G, who's the construction manager. This is their cost to do the work, to do the alteration and extension of Benny Dover Jackson Middle School. The only way that number will change is if it is approved via change order, which means if there's an unforeseen condition or if the city or the district would like to make it an adjustment or an addition, or say the fire marshal comes in and says, I want to put another sprinkler head in here. Those are items that would be changed via change order, and only changes to that contract, that guaranteed maximum price, must be approved by the school building maintenance committee. So the number in front of you today is a final number for the project itself.
Councilor Dice, thank you. Through you, President Dominguez, I guess this question, I guess one of the concerns that, and I'm not sure who to address, so I'm just gonna put it out there. We were looking at the piping. There's two pipes that for fire. That's one is at the Board of Ed, one at the Benny Dover. And when you mention that the only time you will have to change something if the fire department or the police, and I'm curious, when they were so the committee people that's a part of the engineering of the makeup of the building, so the fire, the police, what are they saying? Do they support this project? Because I know that there have been different votes going on forward with the project, and I'm just curious because I know I was concerned if we're supposed to split the fire issue, that Benny Dover have his own pipe and the Board of Ed, and I'm just curious about what's the status of it. I know it sounds confusing, but when I look at all the paperwork for the building, there was so many things that that at the beginning I thought it was going to be separated, but now it's not. So that's why I think I'm confused, because I'm trying to follow and keep up with the project itself, but it is complex.
This is Kate Turner with Colliers. If I may address that, President Dominguez.
Yes, no, you may. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Dice. I do understand this project does have a lot of legs to it, and it's a lot of information to digest, so I can appreciate that. The option we had in front of us, separating the central office from the Benny Dover Jackson Middle School, I cannot speak on behalf of Mr. Scow or Mr. Krippis. I would welcome their opinion on this. Those options, the separation of central office and Benny Dover Jackson Middle School, were designed and priced by our architectural team, our engineering team, and our construction manager to price the options in front of us. And what that would include is, right now we have a functional fire pump, which helps to feed the sprinkler system, make sure it has enough pressure. If the sprinklers were to go off, there's enough pressure flowing through those pipes. So that pump supports that for both Benny Dover Jackson Middle School and for the central office building. So that was one area that we did explore. We would have to relocate the fire pump into the new building. It is a potentially ineligible cost. And that, as well as the utility separation and the relocation of the server room, which is the internet for the entire district. Both of those options were not approved during the school building maintenance committee meeting. So they are still designed and priced. If the project finds that there is additional savings, it is something that can be added back in.
Councilor Dice, thank you, Ms. Turner.
Right. Thank you, Councilor Dice. Any other councilor? All right. Before I go to you, Councilor Goodwin, let me just ask this to Ms. Turner. So why didn't the building committee want those? If they were, I mean, I don't understand if it was gonna benefit the project. Why didn't I mean, I get it. You might not be able to answer that, but but that's my thing. I think that's where we're stuck. I mean, it seems, anyway. Let me go to Councilor Goodwin. You don't have to answer. I know you don't. It's out of.
Through you, Councilor Dominguez, to Ms. Turner. Ms. Turner, are you insinuating that you cannot come back to us with bringing down these ineligibles? And I completely understand the argument that if we wait, we may hypothetically incur more fees, inflation, et cetera. But also there runs the risk, if we don't manage this super tight, that it could balloon in terms of those ineligibles because they're not for certain. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you cannot come back to us with lower ineligibles in order for us to have more faith in passing this through and our finance director being on par with that decision.
Thank you, Councilor Goodwin. This is Kate Turner with Colliers. So as Director McBride mentioned, that upper portion of the ICW 4000 form, those are the costs to construct the project. Now, again, those are estimated values. So those are taking a look at what we have in the project right now. This was, as you can note, the date on that form. The only way that we can reduce those costs, if we chose to change the scope of the project and request a deduct cost, again, that would be the School Building Maintenance Committee's decision to revise or reduce the scope of the project in order to reduce those costs. There's the area of potentially eligible items expended through allowances and contingencies, as we noted. So that is an area to reduce the ineligible costs for the project. However, every project, especially an alteration project, does come with an eligible cost to the state. That is just a state statute of the project and the scope of the project, not necessarily if you were to redesign the project, even if you went back to the project and went from scratch, there would still be ineligible items. It is an alteration. It's subject to ineligible costs by the state of Connecticut. And unfortunately, that's nothing anyone on the project team has any control over.
Completely understand that. I guess I'm more so referring to, we understand the ineligibles can go either way. I'm sure you guys are gonna, or I would hope you guys are gonna work on bringing those down as much as you can. Director McBride pointed to two other areas that we cannot bring down, and those automatically cause us to be over budget. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, thanks, Councilor Goodwin. This is Kate Turner with Colliers. The project budget, the $49 million, $49.5 million, we are within our project budget. That was the budget established by City Council. We are within that project budget. As far as the ineligibles go, I cannot opine. I did post for record the city ordinance that was posted in 2014 after the approval of this project. It does note our construction budget, and it also does note any potential, the potential for an estimated 80 per 80/20 reimbursement rate. So yeah, with that being said, I can't speak to the city ordinance that was passed in 2014, but I can speak to the project budget we were given, and the project is within that budget.
Understood. I guess I'll end on a few comments. Regardless of how this vote goes, I think we need to do a better job of understanding that we have to be on the same accord with our finance director in terms of understanding these ineligibles and not bringing it in the fourth quarter. I understand it was approved in 2014. Here we are in 2021. Regardless of the fact, these have implication on our tax base and long-term implications if things go wrong. And clearly there have been some issues with the management of this project. We wouldn't be here having this dialogue in the first place. So I do share those concerns with other counselors, as well as just me speaking frank for myself. So I just wanted to make sure I was vocal on that. With regards to how the school board of maintenance made decisions on the what became ineligibles, as Councilor Dice was stating, the fire pump not being disconnected or being connected, etc. Some of these things I also have concern with, and also the way the votes, if I'm not mistaken, the last two votes were super contentious with a split vote. Those also have implications. They also start to paint a picture of this disconnect within the team there. So I just wanted to raise those concerns because at the end of the day, my role here is to make sure I protect the taxpayers' dollar and also that we're planning for long term. And we cannot do that if we're not working collectively and or bringing us a project that falls not necessarily within budget with these ineligibles. And I just need our finance director to be on the same accord when it comes to that. But thank you for answering all those questions. I really appreciate it.
Council President Dominguez, Council Sadi would like an opportunity to speak at some point.
Yes, sir, you were. I'm going to call you next. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so through you to Kate Turner. Kate, are you aware that programming calls for the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade performing arts students to be educated at New London High School?
Councilor Sadi, this is Kate Turner. I would defer to Kate McCoy on any questions related to programming.
Okay, so then Kate McCoy, are you on this phone call? On this meeting?
Councilor.
Yeah.
Yes.
And are the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in the performing arts program going to be educated at Benny Dover Jackson Middle School, or are they going to be educated at North Campus at New London High School?
270 middle schoolers assigned to the arts pathway will be in the arts campus at the high school. 750 middle schoolers will be assigned to this building where they will need arts programming in the form of chorus, band, and visual arts as required by middle school curriculum. STEM.
How many students are at Benny Dover Jackson Middle School now?
Currently at Benny Dover Jackson is roughly 600 students.
And do you have a performing arts area at the middle school at this point in time that accommodates those 600 plus students?
We have a band room and a chorus room.
And at the North Campus, are you going to be building chorus rooms and band rooms for the middle schoolers that are going to so choose to follow that pathway?
Correct. They will also have art spaces for the 275, 200, and 290 middle school students in the arts pathway, as well as the high school students.
But right now you are accommodating the state needs by using the programming space that you have available. Is that correct?
The spaces in the middle school that will be redesigned are art spaces, and additional art spaces will be included in the new design.
That's correct. And my understanding is that there will be demolition in the back side of the building. Is that correct?
This is Kate Turner with Colliers. Yes, the old 1930s wing of the building, I believe it was the Chapman Tech wing of the building, will be demolished. That is correct.
What percentage of the budget will be spent on the addition, which is where most of the classroom area is at this point in time?
The new addition, this is Kate Turner with Colliers. The bids are not broken out by new construction and
I apologize. I don't think you understood my question. My question is of the addition, the 84 edition, 1984. How much money of this $55 million budget or $49 million budget is being spent in that wing?
This is Kate Turner. I apologize. Which area is the 84 wing? I know we have a 50s wing and a 90s building.
Where you have the administration now, where you have most of the classroom space now.
Yes, so there is a significant amount of work that is happening in that 90s building. We are doing numerous security upgrades to our main entrance to ensure that it meets school safety standards. On the 4th floor, we are creating—
I understand the work that's being done. I'm asking about dollars.
The dollars, again, unfortunately, the bids are not broken out by area. They're broken out by the total cost of the work by each trade.
Is there going to be any major renovations to the cafeteria?
Yes.
Okay, and is there going to be major renovations to the gym?
Yes.
Okay, what percentage of the budget is being spent on the new area where you're going to recreate a performing arts area?
Again, the bids are not broken out by different areas. However, one exercise that I could entertain and review with you, Mr. Sadi, would be to multiply, do a cost per square foot and look at the size of the addition and look at some of the areas of renovation. So I'm more than happy to do that with you. However, that's not currently how our pricing is broken out. So I do not have an answer at this moment for your question.
And I understand that you're given direction to do your job, and I appreciate it. I think you do a nice job of what you're being directed to do. My problem is that we're spending tens of millions of dollars at the North Campus to create performing arts space. We are also spending millions and millions of dollars recreating space when we already have space at there. We're taking the space that we have, we're demolishing it, and then making it into an international baccalaureate wing. Okay, and then creating a Taj Mahal that these taxpayers may not be able to afford. My problem with the project is that it's being mismanaged, not necessarily by your organization, but being mismanaged by the guidance that's being given. The question's been asked over and over again, and the answer has always been given, as Kate McCoy started to do now, is that the children need these areas. They already have these areas, and my question comes down to, why are we spending millions of dollars to demolish what we already have and then recreate? So my plan this evening is that the program is not within budget, is not going to be within budget. It's not what the taxpayers voted for. And therefore, I am going to oppose sending this forward, as I mentioned in the past. The ineligibles are also of a great concern to me. And I know we heard at the School Building Maintenance Committee that, well, that's the way every project is. Well, this is a new era. Okay, and just because we've wasted taxpayer dollars in the past on other projects doesn't mean we have to continue to do that. And so my plan is to put this, to vote no, hopefully to put this on hold, to take a real good hard look at the project financially so that we can keep it well within the budget. Through you, Council President, to Mayor Passero. Mayor Passero, do you have any concerns in reference to the financial aspects of this project that you would like to discuss at this point?
I share the concerns of the finance director, and I'd be very uncomfortable if the council moved ahead without considering the concerns of our finance director. I've had a lot of experience with school building and maintenance, with school construction projects as former chair of the school building and maintenance committee. I can tell you, yes, projects, I'm told that projects generally incur on average in the industry, maybe 5% to 10% ineligible, somewhere between that, somewhere in that range. I can tell you we just closed out very successfully a 21st century school construction project. That was Winthrop and Nathan Hale. We succeeded in that. I believe that that was a 95% grant, and we probably recovered for the taxpayers 92 or 93%. That was an amazing success. And I believe with the same project manager leading the high school project, we're also going to deliver that project on budget, meaning that close to recovering the grant commitment. This project, the grant commitment was 80%, 20%. And that's what I was on the council when we approved it. That's what I voted for as a taxpayer. You know, I was disappointed, quite frankly, that our reimbursement rate dropped from 95% to 80%. However, the community still thought that that was a good value for us to replace these schools. Unfortunately, the team we have on this project didn't even design a project that came within that grant. We don't qualify for that grant. And they're bringing you a GMP that doesn't, we begin by not even qualifying for that grant. And that's before we start the project and we incur the industry average of the ineligibles that you run into along the way. Because you're gonna run into problems with the design, you're gonna run into things that are in the wrong place, especially with, you know, I'm just gonna call it, it's not the term of art, but you know, a renovation project. You're gonna run into Winthrop and Nathan Hale, a renovation project. We ran into a lot of problems with those projects, including PCBs. We had to work really hard after the design was designed within the grant, but then after the design, we had to work really hard to minimize the ineligibles. I'm very, very nervous about starting a project. And I'm also concerned, you know, we're being told that, you know, it's too expensive to solve the problem with the fire pump. But the fact of the matter is, you know, we designed a $49.5 million project and it doesn't include a fire pump. The fire marshal's beside himself. We're tying into a fire pump that he tells me is halfway through its design life. So what's the first thing we're gonna have to do somewhere a few down the road? We're gonna have to get a new fire pump. And then the fire pump's in a building that every professional I've talked to, they use basically the same term. It's a building that's well beyond its useful life. I'm not comfortable with this project at all. I think the taxpayers and our students, it's not good for our students if it's something that we can't afford.
Mayor Passero, thank you very much. President Dominguez, at this point in time, I have no further questions. Thank you for the opportunity to ask them now.
You're more than welcome. This is President Dominguez. All right. Let me go to, I think, Councilor Book. I don't know if you have an opportunity. Did you want to say something or you just taking it in? Because I'm going to go right into the vote. Because I think you're the only one that hasn't spoken yet, if I'm not mistaken. Just want to make sure that you get, if not, that's fine. I think you're processing all the information like we are, and I think we're ready to vote. All right. Okay. President Pro Temp, did you have?
I want to make a couple comments on this. So, again, you know, here we are in 2021 on this project. Look, there were a lot of mistakes made. I don't think anybody is going to challenge that. But what are we going to do? Are we going to say can the project and not move forward? Because as you know, as the project team, Mr. Warrington, which by the way, these are professionals that are telling us if we start all over, we're going to have some inflation. I have absolutely no doubt that if we reset the button, we're going to see a lot of unnecessary costs come our way. So I think this council needs to decide, you know, what do we say, yeah, we made some mistakes and approve it and move forward, as Councilor Brooks said, get the shovel in the ground? Or are we really going to say, oh, we're going to take a hard, long look? Yeah, in the amount of a couple of years, because we know the story, we've seen it before. This is not going to, the decision's not going to be made in 6 months. The entire process is going to take years. So I'm going to vote in favor of approving this. I hear Councilor Burke is also going to do that, and I would encourage. If we're serious about this project, let's admit that we made some mistakes and move forward. Because there's nothing more frustrating than having this come back over and over and over to council, because we, the elected officials, have been indecisive in making decisions. Nobody said it was going to be easy. We need to make the right decisions. Thank you, President Dominguez.
All right. This is President Dominguez. Thank you, President Pro Tem Nartates. Right, we're ready to vote. All right, go ahead. City Clerk Ayala. Go ahead.
Sir. Counselor Goodwin,
No.
President Dominguez,
No.
Counselor Dice,
No.
Counselor Sadai,
No.
Counselor Burke,
Yes.
Counselor Booker Jr.,
No.
President Pro Temp Natartez.
Yes.
You have 2 no, 5 yes.
Point of order. This is Councilor Burke. I believe you got that backwards.
Yeah, I think he did that.
Sorry, I apologize. 2 yes, 5
I mean,
no.
I'll take it, but
Yeah, no, you're not gonna take it, Councilor Burke. We voted. All right, so the motion fails. All right, thank you. Let's move on to the next one. 8.5, Councilor Booker.
Counselor, that's Counselor, no, you're right, sorry.
Yeah, Booker. Come on, Councilor Goodwin.
I was ready for mine.
I got it tonight.
Move the cam.
Second.
Second.
The City Council approves the expanded storage of Cisco HyperFlex server in the amount of $75,908 from Total Communication from the Capital Reserve Fund. Through you, President Dominguez, to Director Rick Genovese. You mentioned on page 1 of the backup for this CAM that if this server does not get expanded storage in the near future, many servers that run off of it will cease to function. Please share the impact expanding the storage will have on the overall city services.
Hi, this is Director Genovese. I'd be glad to. Almost everything we have server-wise runs on a virtual server. We don't buy separate machines for each server anymore. So that HyperFlex hosts all of our virtual servers. Our email servers, the assessor's software has a service, Public Works has a couple of servers on it. Every department in one way or another is touched by this. And it's kind of like having a big room in your house that you pass through to get to all your other rooms, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, out to the patio, the kitchen. And as we put more furniture in that room, it gets harder and harder to make its way through. And eventually you don't get through it at all. And that's what'll happen if we don't upgrade this server. And an estimate on this is probably we could make it to December before we start having problems. And I'd like to get this resolved before then.
Thank you very much, Director Genovese. I also appreciate you showing me around a few months ago the servers as well. I have a question through you, President Dominguez, to Director McBride. If he's still on, I don't know if he's still on or not.
This is Director McBride.
Yep, he's here.
Director McBride, can you share a little bit about what expenses qualify for capital reserve funds, just for clarification, just for the residents? I would greatly appreciate that.
Yes, certainly, and I'll try to be brief. There are 2 types of expenses, a capital expense and an operating expense. An operating expense is an expense that you utilize the resources for within an annual budget year. So as you know, the operating budgets that the council approves, those are for expenditures that are utilized for a 12-month period. Any type of expense or any type of cost that is going to receive a benefit for greater than 1 year, those are considered capital items. The main reason being for that is in the for-profit world, it's called depreciation, but even in the not-for-profit world, it's due to the fact that you are going to utilize the benefits of that capital item for several years. So through the method of depreciation, you allocate a cost of that capital asset over time in your financial books. So as an example, let's just say Rick's, the items he's looking to purchase were $100,000. In the financial statements, you would not incur $100,000 of expense in the next fiscal year. You would allocate a portion of that expense over, let's say, a 10-year period if the 10-year period was the useful life of that item. Therefore, allocating a piece that you utilize it for in each subsequent year, you're going to enjoy the benefit of that capital item. So that's a little bit of detail, but it's a way to allocate the cost and incur the cost over a period of time when you're going to enjoy the benefit. So, vehicles, maybe 5 to 7 years, houses or 30 years, things of that nature. So capital items are items that you're going to allocate a portion of. And the capital reserve fund is that you set up a few years ago is specifically for capital related items that are going to be utilized for several years and not just for a 1-year period. Hopefully that answers some questions.
Thank you very much, Director McBride. I appreciate your clarification for the residents. Thank you. I have no further questions. I plan on supporting this CAM tonight. Thank you.
Okay. This is President Mingus. Thank you very much, Councilor Booker. Any other councilor? All right. Let's vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, so 6 pass and then 1 no.
There was no.
Oh, did you say? I'm sorry, Councilor Sadi, did you?
No, I apologize. I was a yes.
Okay, wait.
All right.
You said yes, right, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay, thank you. All right. All right, so 7 yes. Okay, so the motion carries. Thank you, Councilor Sadi. All right, let's go to now, Councilor Goodwin, 8.6.
Move to CAM.
This is Councilor Sadi. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. This is with regards to the SAFER grant, which is for our fire department. Through you, Council President, to Chief Curcio. Chief Curcio on the line?
Yeah, I think I saw him.
Yes, good evening, I'm on.
Good evening, Chief Curcio. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Just had a couple quick questions with regards to this. I think prior to my time, not too long ago, there was a similar grant. Have we realized the cost of that grant, and are those firefighters still with us?
They are still with us. The SAFER Grant 2 expires in March of 2022. There was a period of time where a couple of those firefighters were covered at 100% because we are a distressed city, but there was a cap on that. I can't give you the total figures. I can get that for you possibly tomorrow from my administrative assistant, but they did put a cap on it. This one that we are applying for right now has no cap, no match, pays for everything, except for gear. I put that in the letter that I sent you. Sorry.
Except for gear. Any training or anything like that?
No. The way this one would work is to save the money, I would have to hire qualified firefighters, and that would save $6,500 per person for the academy, $1,200 per person for the EMT school, because they'd already have that as well. This grant also pays for their clothing allowance, which is $370 per person when they first start out. And it pays for all their benefits, and it pays for all of their raises for a period of 3 years. At the end of those 3 years, the city can decide whether or not to continue keeping them. Just so you know, I am not changing the contractual language. It's to staff at 18 with a minimum of 16 on duty. So total cost there, I think I gave you the initial cost to hire 8 additional certified candidates for 3 years would be $57,000. Covers the cost of station uniforms, structural firefighting gear. And in years 2 and 3, the cost would be an additional $5,600 a year for the mandated physicals. And that's it.
Got it. And my other question was, should we keep them and able to afford keeping them and realize these costs? Would that put us at adequate staffing levels? And I say that to say, would that help us reduce overtime?
This is going to help us, yes. I gave all those figures. It was included in the packet. And I believe Finance Director McBride can also elaborate on that. He was very helpful coming up with the figures and doing his calculations. And it will, because I would have the availability to, my goal is to staff the 3rd ambulance. As I explained in my letter there, we had 178 calls from mutual aid. Those are 178 missed ambulance calls that we could have handled at a bill rate of $7,800, $781 per call plus mileage, which equates to about $139,018 in lost revenue. We average about $1.6 million a year on that ambulance. That's something that the caller previously did not mention. I understand that EMS calls have gone way up. It's a national average. They have gone up, but those firefighters do double duty. They do firefighting duty and EMS duty. So when they're not on an ambulance call, they're the first ones in a structure fire doing rescue, search, whatever it may take to get the job done. And as you know, well, I know you want to find out because you want to come down and join us one day. We haven't had a chance to do that, but it's very labor intensive. Councilor Booker came along for a ride, did some work with us. But, you know, the example that the fire, I'll just give you just recently, the second alarm at Montauk and Willits was a very, very labor intensive hidden fire up in the attic that was running through the walls, and it was plaster and lath and required a great deal of muscle and manpower to get that done. And as you see, they're working on that building already. So we saved another one. And you can see our annual report that's done every year by BC Ram and Vernon Scow, our fire marshal, about how effective we are at saving properties in this city because it's due to staffing. There's no two ways about it. You got to have staffing in order to get the job done. There's tasks that we have to do, and I'm sorry to keep running on, but if you have any other questions, go ahead and feel free to ask.
No, and thank you, Chief Curcio. It's not running on. We appreciate your transparency and willing to engage in the dialogue. My main reason for pulling this was, one, to start that dialogue on overtime, but two, most importantly, as we're discussing police, I think it's important for the residents to understand that we scrutinize and or indulge in this type of dialogue with all of our public safety aspects, including fire. So I wanted to make sure that they heard from you, as well as understood that we're watching both and making sure that we can adequately provide public safety in the best and most efficient way to our residents. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Goodwin, one thing I'd like to add, even at the end of 3 years, if the city decides not to staff at the 18, but continues to, you know, meet the contractual 16, we may be able to absorb those people through attrition. We have a lot of retirements coming up. And, you know, we've been keeping these positions filled because we have to, because of the SABRE grant. If you don't fill them, you can lose that SABRE grant. So this is a good way to bring 8 trained EMT firefighters on board and retain them should in 3 years we have numerous more members retire, which I have another 4 that are going to be retiring in June. So it's they're getting up there in their years of service, so they're retiring.
Got it. And I look forward to my ride and my me putting on that suit of yours. Just note that it is going to get warm soon, so I need to do that soon.
You got to do it in the cold.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor Goodwin. At this time, I have a question for Chief Curcio. So the 8 additional firefighters, what's the process of hiring them? Are you guys? I mean, it's through the city. I mean, what's how?
Councilor President Dominguez, since I took over as chief, I've worked with Personnel Administrator Collins and David McBride and my administrative assistant Mary Santos to come up with a plan on how to keep these positions filled, because I would think that Finance Director David McBride could see that in the past year or two, we've saved considerably on overtime costs, and the budget was down for overtime, both in ambulance and fire, due to having these positions filled. You have to remember that the firefighters chose back in, I believe it was 1994, to go for staffing due to the loss of life of firefighter acting lieutenant then John O'Connor. They wanted staffing, not raises. And they've stuck with that because they know it's for the safety of our members. So yes, David McBride also wanted me to mention too that I'm only asking for permission right now to apply.
Oh, I see. That's right.
This is going to be a very, very competitive grant. We do very well with our grants. We get a lot of AFG grants and SAFER grants. So did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
Well, no, you're just applying for the grant. Eventually we'll get to the hiring later on when we do, because I believe we're going to get it. We're going to get it. We'll get it.
Okay. So
yeah.
just to answer that question, I wanted to keep active lists. So we just gave another recruitment. It has both certified and non-certified on that. So I will be sending 2 or 3 additional candidates to the Fire Academy in the fall. They've already been interviewed. Some of them have no experience in the fire service, and I've encouraged them to go get their physical fitness exam, because you have to have that. It's called CPAT. They have to have that before they enter the Fire Academy, and it would also behoove them to get an EMT, which would also save the city money. So there's 2 of them right now actively taking an EMT class on their own up at American Ambulance. So I haven't made an official offer to them yet, but those 2 individuals will be coming on and going to the Fire Academy in the fall.
Thank you, Chief Kershaw. This is President Dominguez. Councilor Booker, go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, President Dominguez. For you, President Dominguez, to Chief Curcio. Chief Curcio, I know how passionate you are about recruiting New London residents. What is the marketing strategy to recruit New London residents?
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt. Councilor Booker, on the last test, I was disappointed. Personnel Administrator Collins gave the written test. There was a good amount of New London residents that did apply for this, but unfortunately they did not pass the written test. So as you know, I think you've heard me speak about it before. I've lived in New London all my life. I attended New London public schools. I want to get back into the schools. COVID has pretty much destroyed our plans this year, but I worked with the school system, with the superintendent, with Kate McCoy, and a gentleman by the name of Josh Beebe, who is actually a paramedic that teaches up at New London High School. Unbeknownst to me, they were teaching what's called an emergency medical response class in the student's senior year. And that's kind of you can call it a prerequisite to EMT school. It gets them primed for that class. So I reached out to the school system and asked, is there any way they could teach that EMR class in the junior year? We can proceed with the EMT in the senior year. And they've instituted it in this year, in this year's curriculum. So the students will be able to do all their ride time that's required in EMT school with the New London Fire Department ambulance. And the good thing about this is even if they don't have any interest in the fire service and they're enjoying the EMS end of it, I've already spoken with the kids that are enrolled in the class through a Zoom meeting this year, and they're pumped, and they know that once they graduate from high school, they can go to work on a private ambulance company. They can get a job in an emergency room as an emergency room technician to help the nurses. They'll be a because let's face it, not everybody's college bound, and they'll have a job right when they come out of school at a decent rate of pay, I may say.
And Chief Curcio, and I understand like everything's going on as far as this pandemic and everything. What do you think, just forecasting as far as like the rollout? You think it'll be around like maybe next year or?
No, I believe that they're doing it this year. They have kids they have students that are in the EMR class where they're trying to enroll them. It's been very busy right now with the pandemic. I'm not making excuses. I am going to reach out to you, Counselor Goodwin, because I know he went to school with my son up at New London High School. They play basketball together. So we want to get together. We want to get in the school. Counselor Dice and anyone that wants to join us. I mean, to go out. I have Tommy Majors on board. I'm really looking forward to try to get more kids actively involved in this program.
Thank you so much, Chief Curcio, and for all the great work you're doing as well. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for your support. Did Councilor Sada have a question?
You know what? I was going to go to him just to make sure, and I think Councilor Brooke, just in case.
This is Councilor Shaddy. I have no. Keep up the good work, Chief Curcio.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Councilor Burke, do you have any?
This is Councilor Burke. No, thank you for all the info, Chief, and ready to vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, I think we're ready to vote. Thank you for those questions too, Councilor Booker there at the end. And thank you for the responses and also just the passion, Chief Kershaw, that you have on getting our kids, all right, from the high school involved. So this is great. Right, with that said, let's vote. Yep, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. All right, the motion carries. The Safer Grant funding to apply is a yes. All right, I think that was it, guys. I don't think we have, I'm just looking for, okay, Councilor Dice has motion to adjourn. Do you have a second?
Second, Council Booker.
Thank you, Councilor Booker, with a second. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those
Aye.
opposed say nay. All right, good night, everyone. Good job tonight.
Thank you.